Chapter 13:23. In the void above, Nie Tianling stared coldly at Luo Chenhun. His eyes were burning with fury. In his previous life, Nie Tian had been murdered by Luo Chenhun and his daughter. This hatred was absolutely irreconcilable. Although the mastermind behind everything was the Snow Empress, the ones who had killed Nie Tian were Luo Chenhun and his daughter, Nie Tian. Luo Chenhun wasn't overly flustered as he faced Nie Tian. He only said Luo Chenhun coldly, "Since you already know everything, I won't explain anything. Everything I'm doing is not personal. I'm only doing it to give Luo Xian a better future." A better future? Nie Tianling laughed coldly. His eyes were full of disdain as he said, "You want to sacrifice me so that your daughter can enter the upper domain, right?" "Yes." Luo Chenhun nodded solemnly. Then, he smiled and said, "If it were you, what would you do? Isn't it normal to make such a choice between a close relative and an outsider?" Nie Tian clenched his fists slightly. The black flames around him became even more intense. The entire world seemed like it was about to be destroyed by the terrifying black flames. Luo Chenhun might have had his reasons for what happened back then, but those reasons couldn't be used as a reason to kill Nie Tian. He was also one of the 9 emperors. He didn't need to listen to the Snow Empress. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted Luo Xian to enter the upper domain, he wouldn't have killed Nie Tian. Everything had been driven by benefits. "Luo Chenhun, I respect your status as an emperor, so I'll give you a dignified death. Kill yourself." Nie Tian's eyes instantly turned cold. He spoke in a low and domineering voice. Everyone was stunned when they heard his words. They couldn't react for a long time. Perhaps only Nie Tian would ask one of the 9 emperors, the Dainite Emperor, to commit suicide. "Nie Tian, are you that confident?" Luo Chenhuan's eyes widened in anger. He really didn't believe that Nie Tian had the ability to kill him. "Humph." Suddenly, Nie Tianling laughed. His figure suddenly moved, and a pair of starlight wings seemed to appear on his back. His entire body was like a stream of light, streaking across the void. Swoosh! In the next moment, a sharp blade of black light appeared and shot out. It didn't look strong, but its speed was extremely fast. It was heading straight for Chen Xinwen. Pooh! Chen Xinwen didn't have time to react. He suddenly felt a chill on his neck, followed by the sound of flesh being pierced. Warm liquid spurted out. Under everyone's gaze, a bloody head flew in midair. It was precisely Chen Xinwen. When Luo Chenhun saw this scene, he was directly stunned on the spot, his expression astonished to the extreme. Bean-sized beads of sweat seeped out of his forehead. If not for seeing it with their own eyes, who could believe the scene before their eyes? Chen Xinwen, one of the exalted 9 emperors, was actually insta-killed by Nie Tian in one move. Furthermore, it was even the most primitive killing method, decapitation. Even before dying, he didn't even have the chance to cry out his final tragic cry. Nie Tian's strength was inconceivable. This. Tiangong looked at the scene before him blankly, his mouth wide open, but he was shocked until he couldn't speak. Mo Qianjun and Jiuqian Sheng were also stunned on the spot, looking at Nie Tian in disbelief. The Nie Tian who fused with the Heart of Void, his strength reached 9th level Heavenly Emperor. But his true combat power reached an outrageous level, absolutely not beneath the Snow Emperor. Insta-killing an Alchemy Emperor in one move, this scene was indeed shocking. "Luo Chenhun, do you still doubt my strength now?" Nie Tianling smiled coldly, his voice filled with killing intent and ridicule. "That sword just now," Nie Tian used the Darkstar Ghost Slaughter. He discovered that after the Starry Origin Stone and the Heart of Void fused into one, the power of the stars seemed to have a qualitative change. The power of the Starry Sky ancient martial art increased more than several times. Just what kind of effect did the Heart of Void bring to the 10th Essence Meridian? Nie Tian secretly said in his heart. But he did not have time to examine his body right now. It was still more important to deal with the matter in front of him. How is this possible? Luo Chunhun finally reacted and opened his mouth in astonishment. His throat involuntarily rolled up and down, his eyes revealing immense terror that was hard to conceal. Nie Tian's strength was too terrifying, far exceeding his imagination. Among the 9 emperors, Chen Xinwen's strength wasn't considered strong. Luo Chunhun believed that his strength was above Chen Xinwen's, but he was only slightly stronger than the latter. If Nie Tian had the strength to insta-kill Chen Xinwen, then he could also insta-kill Luo Chunhun. Luo Chunhun, do you really want me to do it personally? Nie Tianling asked coldly, the coldness in his eyes intensifying. Long Outyen was currently fighting with the Snow Empress, and he had no time to waste on Luo Chunhun. Nie Tian, I was wrong back then. I beg you, let me go. Unexpectedly, Luo Chunhun suddenly begged for mercy and walked towards Nie Tian step by step. There was no longer the arrogance on his face, and what was left was a pitiful look. Humph. Nie Tianling laughed twice, and the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. Nie Tian, die. At this moment, Luo Chunhun suddenly roared, and a black battle-axe appeared behind him. It instantly expanded and was thousands of meters long. It was like a huge black mountain, and it chopped down ferociously. Boom! The heaven and earth shook violently, and a terrifying explosion sounded in the air. The black battle-axe flipped, and huge waves surged towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian, be careful! Emo Qianjun and the rest couldn't help but exclaim when they saw this. No one expected the mighty Emperor Chunhun to be so shameless. He pretended to beg for mercy on Nie Tian, and then waited for an opportunity to kill him. How pitiful! However, Nie Tian wasn't flustered at all. His expression darkened, and he roared angrily. Black flames rose from his body, and the absolute heaven slash appeared in his hand. Blood chi surged around his body, and he directly slashed towards Luo Chunhun. Boom! In the void, a huge sword shadow of thousands of meters appeared. Terrible black flames and blood-red sword essence surged on it, and an extremely violent momentum swept across the heaven and earth. Kaboom! High up in the sky, the black battle-axe and the black flame sword shadow collided. The void trembled violently, and then there was a crisp sound of an explosion. The black battle-axe couldn't withstand the terrible impact of the sword essence, and it directly collapsed. Ah! The next moment, a shrill scream was heard. Luo Chunhuan's figure was submerged in the billowing sword essence, and there was nothing left of him. At the moment of his death, his eyes were full of shock and confusion. He had used the giant spiritual body to attack, but he couldn't block Nie Tian's sword. At the same time, Nie Tian's body trembled slightly, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He had used the forbidden move of the AO sword tactics in the previous attack, and it caused him a lot of burden. This extremely tragic scene made Tiangong and the rest of the people's eyes glaze over, and they looked at Nie Tian in surprise. At this moment, there was an indescribable shock in the hearts of Tiangong and the others. In just the blink of an eye, Nie Tian had killed 2 great emperors, 1 sword and 1 emperor. Just what kind of terrifying level had his strength reached? Nie Tian stood in the sky, and the corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile, and then he looked at the others. Qian Chenyu was looking at Nie Tian in shock. When he noticed the coldness in Nie Tian's eyes, he couldn't help but tremble inexplicably, and a chill ran down his spine. Chapter 1324. Nie Tian's eyes locked onto Qian Chenyu, and he slashed out with his sword. Qian Chenyu was stunned, and she only reacted when she sensed the enormous sword intent assaulting her. He had been shocked by Nie Tian's terrifying strength just now, and was distracted for a moment. Now that he reacted, he was a little slow. Boom! In a hurry, Qian Chenyu struck out with his palm, and his yuan power surged out. A huge curtain of water appeared in the air, and there was the sound of crashing waves. Too weak. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Nie Tian's mouth as he swung his heaven-severing sword. Dazzling emperor light burst forth from the tip of his sword, which merged with his terrifying sword intent. In the next moment, an enormous sword shadow appeared in the air, and then came crashing down like a moving mountain. Boom! There was a loud crash, and the curtain of water could not withstand the sword shadow at all. It crumbled and dissipated in the sword will. "Don't kill me!" The mighty sword will whistled over, with the most decisive murderous intent. Qian Qinyu's eyes trembled when he saw this, and he felt the aura of death. He screamed, his voice sharp and sinister. He had killed countless people in his life, and he did not expect to be so panicked when he was facing death. Boom! But it was too late. The sword shadow swept over, and wherever the sword will passed, there was blood. Qian Qinyu's figure was drowned in the sword will, and he turned into a bloody light that dissipated. Before he died, Qian Qinyu seemed to be shouting a name. Nie Tian could faintly hear that it was his son, the thousand-flowing kill. Perhaps Qian Qinyu wanted to use the thousand-flowing kill to threaten Nie Tian, but he did not have the chance. The thousand-flowing kill was in the upper region. Even if Qian Qinyu said this name, Nie Tian would not care. Another pinnacle expert. Qian Qinyu was killed by Nie Tian in a second. The shocking scene stunned Tian Gong and the others, and they were petrified on the spot. This was already the third peak expert Nie Tian had killed. Just what kind of frightening level had his strength reached? From Nie Tian's aura, it seemed like even the Snow Empress might not be his match. Nie Tian, you are indeed a formidable opponent. It seems that I have underestimated you. On the other side, Duguni's cold eyes flickered, and he actually revealed a faint smile. He thought to himself, but this is good too. You killed the Snow Empress. In this way, the Heaven Realm's divine realm will be in chaos. Boom! Feeling a chill in his heart, Dugunai stabbed out with the longsword in his hand. An astonishing sword will whizzed out like a black bolt of lightning towards Nie Tian. Dugunai! Nie Tian sensed the sword essence coming at him. He narrowed his eyes and the black flames around him condensed into a huge black snake. It opened its mouth and swallowed the sword shadow. The devouring power of the heart of nihility was tyrannical to the extreme. It could devour heaven and earth, so a mere strand of sword intent was naturally nothing to it. Nie Tian, goodbye. But at this moment, Duguni's figure had already disappeared. His cold laughter resounded in the air. Dugunai did not intend to kill Nie Tian. He only wanted to escape. Nie Tian frowned slightly, and a murderous look flashed in his eyes. He looked in the direction where Dugunai disappeared, shook his head, and gave up on the chase. With his current strength, it should not be difficult for him to catch up with Dugunai. But it would be a waste of time. It was not worth it for Dugunai. Nie Tian's strength is far more terrifying than the top elites. Tian Gong and the rest looked in the direction where Dugunai disappeared, and their hearts trembled. In the blink of an eye, he killed 3 top elites and scared one away. This kind of strength was extremely abnormal. Snow Empress, it's your turn. Nie Tian's lips curled into a smile. He turned to look at the sky, and a strong murderous intent surged in his eyes. Although he was unconscious just now, he saw the Snow Empress kill Bailey Fengchen with his own eyes. Although Bailey Fengchen and the Snow Empress did not fight for him, they had protected his safety. This kindness, of course, would be repaid by Nie Tian. More importantly, the Snow Empress killed Long Xiao, left a sage's mark on Mo Rushi, and left Qi Wuxiao's fate unknown. He was also the culprit behind Nie Tian's death in his previous life. Any one of these things was enough for Nie Tian to kill the Snow Empress 100 times over. The Snow Empress did all of this for one purpose, and that was to advance to the godly state. Just as he had said, he would do anything to advance to the godly state. At this moment, the battle between the Snow Empress and Long Outyen had reached its climax. The two of them were fighting to the death. Long Outyen, stop! In the sky, the Snow Empress was shrouded by the ice-sealing devilish mark, but her eyes were trembling violently. She shouted, "Even if you have the body of a nine-seal true dragon, you can't do anything to me." The Snow Empress had seen Nie Tian kill Luo Chenhun and the others with his own eyes. At this moment, he and Long Outian were in a stalemate. If Nie Tian intervened, the situation would be reversed instantly. Roar! The nine-seal true dragon roared furiously, and its huge body kept rolling in the air. The seven-colored halo around its body kept changing, and the draconic aura around it became stronger and stronger. The person in front of him had killed his father, so how could Long Outian let him go? At this moment, the nine-seal true dragon was covered in blood. Dragon scales kept falling off its huge body. The ice-sealing demonic power in the surrounding space kept surging into its body. Even the body of a nine-seal true dragon could not resist such powerful demonic power. Long Outian, don't force me! The Snow Empress furrowed her brow when she saw the nine-seal true dragon pressing towards her. She struck out with her palm, and thousands of golden palm shadows appeared in the void. They covered the entire sky as they struck the dragon's body. Bang, bang, bang! Countless dull sounds could be heard in the air. Countless bloody holes appeared on the dragon's body, and fresh blood rained down like rain. Heaven and earth were filled with the stench of blood, and the air was filled with a foul stench. The nine-seal true dragon was forced to retreat, but its eyes were filled with a determined killing intent. It did not waver at all. Long Outian and the Snow Empress would not rest until one of them was dead. The Snow Empress furrowed her brow. She did not expect Long Outian's nine-seal true dragon to possess such frightening strength even though it had just awakened. Even though she had activated her ice-sealing devilish seals, she could not completely destroy it. How could the Snow Empress know that the rainbow illusory seal that Bailey Fengchen had left in Long Outian's body had already fused perfectly with the nine-seal true dragon? This greatly stimulated the strength of a true dragon's body, which allowed Long Outian to possess strength comparable to a demigod when he had just awakened his true dragon's body. The rainbow illusory seal was Bailey Fengchen's strongest strength. Otherwise, he would not have died so easily at the hands of the Snow Empress. Roar! At this moment, the nine-seal true dragon roared furiously once more. Its huge body flipped and charged towards the Snow Empress. "You're courting death." When the Snow Empress saw this, her eyes suddenly became sinister. With a low roar, the ice-sealing devilish imprints around her immediately expanded. At the same time, the great universe development technique in her body circulated wildly, and balls of strange energy were released. Chapter 1325. In the sky, the Snow Empress' face was so gloomy that it was almost dripping blood. He didn't expect Long Outian to be so difficult to deal with, forcing him to use a forbidden technique. The Snow Empress had cultivated the great universe development technique for hundreds of years. Right now, he was going to use the forbidden technique, Heaven and Earth Reversal. Once he used this technique, Long Outian would either die or be crippled, and the Snow Empress would definitely suffer from the backlash. However, the Snow Empress couldn't care less now. If he waited for Nie Tian to charge over, he would really be in danger if both of them attacked him together. Die! The Snow Empress didn't hesitate any more as she struck out with her palm. The blood-colored whirlpool in her hand drew a blood-colored arc in the air. At the same time, it fused with a portion of the ice-sealing devilish seal's strength. Not good! At this moment, Nie Tian realized that something was wrong. Meteor wings appeared on his back. Terrifying black flames surged on his starlight wings. His figure was like a bolt of black lightning as he shot out. However, he was still too late. The blood-colored whirlpool began to expand in midair. Instantly, it became 10,000 meters in diameter. It directly engulfed the entire space and engulfed the nine-seal true dragon. Waves of blood-colored forbidden power surged out and entered the nine-seal true dragon's body. Roar! The nine-seal true dragon could sense the ice-cold power approaching it. It couldn't help but roar into the sky. It was extremely tragic. Crack, crack, crack. In the next moment, the blood-colored forbidden power that surged into the nine-seal true dragon's body unleashed a terrifying force. In an instant, the nine-seal true dragon was sealed in ice. At the same time, the Snow Empress' lips curled into a smile as she muttered, "Heaven and earth reversal, open." No. Nie Tian could sense that something was wrong. As he exclaimed, the black flames around his body surged over violently. It was like a frightening sea of fire. Bang, bang, bang. However, at this moment, the nine-seal true dragon's body suddenly exploded. Following a series of muffled sounds, countless bloody holes appeared on the dragon's body, and blood poured down like a torrential rain. Nie Tian's eyes flickered violently as he dashed forward. Black flames of nothingness spread out and enveloped the nine seals true dragon. Then, with a thought in his mind, he forcibly devoured the blood-colored restrictive power within the dragon's body. The Snow Empress furrowed her brow when she saw this. Following which, she laughed coldly and said, "You have to pay the price if you want to save them." After she finished speaking, the Snow Empress didn't hesitate at all. She struck out with her palm, and countless golden palm shadows blasted towards Nie Tian. However, Nie Tian was completely focused on Long Outyin. He didn't care about the Snow Empress attack at all, and allowed the golden palm shadows to land on his body. Bang, bang, bang. Countless muffled sounds were heard. Nie Tian's body trembled violently, and his whole body was instantly covered with blood. However, he was like a rock in a storm and didn't move an inch. No matter what, he had to save Long Outyin. Courting death. The Snow Empress' eyes narrowed when she saw that Nie Tian didn't care about her attack at all. Her killing intent was revealed as she punched out. The golden fist shadows fused with the power of the ice-sealing devilish mark, and immediately swept up the dark clouds in all directions as she struck towards Nie Tian. Not only did the Snow Empress use the right hand of the god, but she also fused it with the power of the devilish mark. If Nie Tian was hit head-on, he would be severely injured even if he didn't die. Watch out! Tian Gong and the rest couldn't help but exclaim when they saw this scene from afar. However, Nie Tian didn't care. He was completely focused on Long Outyin. Boom! Instantly, Nie Tian felt that the blood-colored forbidden power in the nine-seal true dragon's body had been completely devoured. His frown relaxed a little. However, the golden fist shadows were already charging towards him at this moment. Earth Pole Mysterious Heavenly Armor, activate! In his haste, Nie Tian didn't have time to use the Heavenly Star Guardian. He could only forcefully activate the mysterious Heavenly Armor. Bam! A muffled sound rang out, and Nie Tian's body was sent flying. He drew a line of blood in the air. Nie Tian! Tian Gong and the rest were stunned by this bloody scene, and they exclaimed in shock. However, a pair of starlight wings appeared on the back of the blood-colored figure in the void at this moment. The wings flapped, and he stood steadily in the air. He's not dead. The Snow Empress' eyes trembled when she saw this scene. She revealed an unconcealable fear. The punch that she had just unleashed was her strongest attack. Nie Tian had hastily defended himself, but he didn't die. He didn't even seem to be seriously injured. Snow Empress, is this your right hand of the god? Nie Tian stabilized himself and shuddered slightly. The blood and dirt around his body surged. Although his face was a little pale, his entire being was sharp and murderous. He said coldly, "Is this all you've got?" As he finished speaking, Nie Tian reached out and pulled Long Outyin over. Long Outyin had returned to his human form, but his entire body was a mess of blood and flesh. He was unconscious. Even though he had awakened the Nine Seals true dragon, he was still a little inferior to the Snow Empress. "Brother Imo, help me take care of Outyin." Nie Tian could sense that Long Outyin's breathing was stable, and that he wasn't in any danger. He extended his palm and sent Long Outyen in front of Mo Qianjun. It had been too dangerous just now. If Nie Tian had been a little slower, Long Outyen would have died. Fortunately, Nie Tian had the heart of nothingness, which allowed him to devour the 9 seals true dragon's blood-colored forbidden power. Otherwise, Long Outyen wouldn't have survived. The heart of nothingness was too frightening. It could devour almost any power. Nie Tian, you. The Snow Empress stared at Nie Tian from afar. Her eyes flickered intensely, and her expression was one of extreme shock. She couldn't imagine how Nie Tian could be so powerful. The most frightening thing was that Nie Tian's martial body was too freakish. He seemed unaffected by the Snow Empress' right hand of God's attack. Nie Tian had fused with the heart of nothingness. Not only had his 10th origin meridian changed, but his 9 dragon veins had also been strengthened. His martial body was unimaginably strong. Snow Empress, it's time to end things between you and me. Nie Tian's figure flickered, and he rose into the sky to face the Snow Empress. He spoke cold. The Snow Empress could sense Nie Tian's murderous intent. Her eyes trembled, and her face was filled with shock. She knew that she wasn't Nie Tian's match. Furthermore, she had expended too much of her origin power. If she were to fight Nie Tian now, she would most likely die here. On the other hand, Nie Tian had expended a lot of his origin power. However, he could continuously absorb the power of others to replenish his depleted origin power. Under such circumstances, it was clearly not a wise move to fight Nie Tian to the death. Thinking of this, the Snow Empress narrowed her eyes. Frightening power rose from her body. The ice-sealing demonic seal around her instantly swelled, and waves of frightening power spread in the air. Let's fight. Nie Tian's eyes flickered, and a crazy desire to fight surged in his eyes. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Nie Tian's body trembled, and dragon aura emanated from his body. The purple-gold dragon aura surged out like a vast ocean, and the figure of a 3,000-meter scarlet-gold dragon appeared. The huge dragon's body tumbled in the air, and the majestic dragon aura immediately spread in the air, causing heaven and earth to tremble. Chapter 13:26. When the Snow Empress saw the giant scarlet-golden dragon behind Nie Tian, she could not help but shudder. Her eyes flickered with fear. She did not expect the power of the dragon vein in Nie Tian's body to be no weaker than Long Outyen's 9 seals true dragon. Nie Tian, it seems like I have underestimated you. The Snow Empress regained her composure immediately. She smiled coldly and said, I want to see how strong your dragon vein is. It's enough to kill you. Nie Tian's face darkened, but there was a complicated look in her eyes. Arrogant. The Snow Empress roared. The ice-sealing demonic seals around her suddenly expanded and pressed down. A huge icicle appeared in the void. It was like an iceberg, and it roared and roared. Hum. The space let out a low hum, as if it was groaning. Die. Nie Tian's eyes flickered. He leaped up and charged forward on the giant scarlet-golden dragon. These two are so scary. Tian Gong and the rest trembled uncontrollably as they watched the scene in the sky. Nie Tian and the Snow Empress were far more powerful than ordinary peak experts. A head-on clash between the two of them would definitely be earth-shattering. Boom! Boom! Loud booms could be heard continuously in the sky. The giant scarlet-golden dragon and the enormous icicle approached each other rapidly. Kaboom! Finally, the two gigantic existences collided with each other, causing an earth-shattering explosion to ring out in the air. After that, a boundless amount of energy was unleashed as terrifying shock waves engulfed the heavens and earth. The draconic chi and the devil seal devoured each other, clashing against each other, penetrating into each other. Boom! Billowing waves of air spread out in all directions. Under the tremendous pressure, the void was instantly pulled taut as if it was about to collapse. The Purgatory Mountain was struck by the violent airwaves. The trees and rocks were all shattered. The huge mountain began to collapse. It was like the end of the world. Nie Tian and the Snow Empress were too powerful. The destructive power of their head-on clash was enough to destroy the entire Purgatory Mountain. Chi chi chi. An ear-piercing sound came from the void, and the terrifying forces were still colliding with each other. The figures of the two could no longer be seen high up in the sky, only terrifying waves of chi continuously surging out. After a while, the two figures finally appeared again. Nie Tian stood tall, his silver hair fluttering in the wind. He stood there like a mountain or an ocean. On the other hand, the Snow Empress was in a sorry state. She was drenched in blood, and her face was as pale as a sheet. Her body was trembling, and she seemed like she was about to collapse. There was no doubt that Nie Tian had the upper hand in the head-on confrontation between the two of them. Nie Tian, you are indeed strong enough. No wonder you possess the God-fiend origin embryo. The Snow Empress stabilized herself, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. There wasn't much fear in her eyes. Nie Tian lowered his head to look at Purgatory Mountain, his brows unable to help but furrow. Nie Tian, let me leave. The Snow Empress suddenly spoke, and her eyes flickered with a crafty look. Do you think that's possible? Nie Tianling laughed coldly, and his eyes were filled with disdain and killing intent. The Snow Empress was already severely injured, and it was the best time to kill her. How could Nie Tian let her go? Of course it's possible. The Snow Empress laughed. After that, she glanced at Emo Qianjun and the others in the distance, and said, let me leave if you don't want them to die. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he seemed to have guessed something. The Snow Empress chuckled and said, Nie Tian, you know that I haven't unleashed my true strength. If you want to turn this place into the demonic devouring abyss, I'll fight with you. You're threatening me. Nie Tian's face darkened and his eyes flickered. Of course he understood what the Snow Empress meant, and he had to consider it carefully. If the Snow Empress completely unleashed the strength of the ice-sealing demonic seal, Purgatory Mountain would become the second demonic devouring abyss. In the past, Qi Wuxia Ocean unleashed the strength of the demonic devouring seal and created the demonic devouring abyss. The demonic devouring seal was ranked 10th among the 10 most powerful seals, while the ice-sealing demonic seal was ranked 7th. Its strength was definitely above the demonic devouring seal. The Snow Empress' current strength was also above Qi Wuxia Ocean's. If he completely unleashed the strength of the ice-sealing demonic seal, the space within thousands of miles of Purgatory Mountain would completely collapse, and this place would become the second demonic devouring abyss. Nie Tian was confident that he could survive under the ice-sealing demonic seal. But Emo Qianjun and the others would definitely not survive. The Snow Empress was using the lives of Emo Qianjun and the others to threaten Nie Tian. I'm threatening you. The Snow Empress laughed coldly and said, for someone like you who values friendship and loyalty, I'm sure you don't want to see your friends die together with me. If he completely unleashed the strength of the ice-sealing demonic seal, it would be difficult for the Snow Empress to survive, but Emo Qianjun and the others would die together with him. Shui Lingtian, are you that confident? Nie Tianling laughed coldly, but in his heart, he was thinking about how to protect Emo Qianjun and the others. He was a little regretful that he did not ask the others to hide in the three-life stone. It was too late to do that now. Humph. At this moment, the Snow Empress suddenly laughed coldly and said, Nie Tian, there's one more thing I haven't told you. Your uncle is not dead yet. If you still want to see him again, let me leave. Demon King. Nie Tian's eyes darkened when he heard the Snow Empress' words, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. He did not know if the Snow Empress was speaking the truth, but he could not take the risk. Nie Tian, I'll give you a chance. We'll meet in 3 days at the demonic devouring abyss. I'll prepare a huge surprise for you then. How about it? The Snow Empress laughed coldly when she saw Nie Tian's reaction. Nie Tian's eyes flashed as he locked his cold gaze on the Snow Empress. All right. After a brief moment, Nie Tian nodded and said, "Snow Empress, everything between us will come to an end in 3 days." Nie Tian wanted to kill the Snow Empress very much, but he could not risk the lives of Mo Qianjun and the others. Furthermore, Chiwuxia Ocean was still in the Snow Empress' hands, so he could only let the Snow Empress go. Nie Tian, we'll meet in 3 days. The Snow Empress laughed coldly. Her figure flickered as she stepped into the air and disappeared like a stream of light. Nie Tian looked in the direction that the Snow Empress had left, and his gaze became more and more complicated. At some point, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly, and he murmured, "Uncle." After a brief moment, Nie Tian became cold and appeared beside Mo Qianjun and the others. After making sure that everyone was fine, he did not stay any longer, and led everyone to the Divine Cold Hall. And not long after Nie Tian and the others left, the void trembled slightly, and a vague figure appeared. It was a familiar face. The Scarlet Flame Devil King, the demonic Lumen. "Although I came a little late, I still obtained important information. I'll go back and report to Emperor Yi first." The demonic Lumen murmured, and with a smile, his figure disappeared into the void. After a brief moment, the demonic Lumen's figure appeared in a secret valley in the divine realm of the Heaven Realm. "Emperor Yi, I have something to report." The demonic Lumen looked at the cliffs of the valley and shouted. As his voice faded, the cliffs of the valley shook slightly, and a ray of light emerged. Within it stood an illusory figure. It was a white-haired old man. If Nie Tian was here and saw this white-haired old man, he would definitely be shocked on the spot. Chapter 1327. Heaven Realm's Divine Realm, inside the mysterious valley. An illusory figure appeared in front of the Lumen Fiend. It was not a corporeal body. Clearly, it was not the original body but a soul clone. This soul clone had a very powerful aura. Standing in the valley, the aura around it spread out like a king ruling over a stretch of heaven and earth. If Nie Tian was here, he would be able to recognize at a glance that the old man in front of him was the person who accompanied him when he was young, the person who called him Young Lord. Lord Emperor Yi. When the Lumen Fiend saw the illusory figure appear, he immediately bowed and did not even dare to raise his head, being respectful. "Lumen Fiend, speak," Emperor Yi said coldly. Although the aura around him was restrained, it still gave people a powerful pressure. "Lord Emperor Yi, this subordinate has some information about Lord Nie Tian," the Lumen Fiend said respectfully, appearing extremely cautious. "Young Lord." When Emperor Yi heard the Lumen Fiend mention Nie Tian this name, he could not help but frown. Then, he laughed and said, "Young Lord has returned to the Heaven Realm's Divine Realm for some time. His current strength is already around the 7th level Heavenly Emperor, right?" His gentle laughter was filled with undisguised love. Emperor Yi once stayed by Nie Tian's side for 5 years, accompanying him through his childhood. It was just that some things happened later that made him have no choice but to leave. Between him and Nie Tian, although they were master and servant, there was a grandfather-grandson relationship. "Lord Emperor Yi." The Lumen Fiend finally raised his head, looked at Emperor Yi respectfully, and said, "Lord Nie Tian's current strength has already reached the 9th level Heavenly Emperor." 9th level Heavenly Emperor? Emperor Yi was slightly taken aback, clearly quite surprised. He said in a trembling voice, "Young Lord only returned to the Heaven Realm's Divine Realm for about a year and actually reached the 9th level Heavenly Emperor from the 1st level Heavenly Emperor. Looks like his talent became even stronger after reincarnating." Looking at it this way, this seat's failure to stop Luo Chunhun and the rest back then might not be a bad thing. Back then, when Nie Tian was harmed by Luo Chunhun, Emperor Yi was not in the Heaven Realm's Divine Realm. When he returned, he learned that Nie Tian already perished. However, his identity could not be exposed, so he did not seek revenge on Luo Chunhun and the others. Most importantly, Renhuang Yi knew that Nie Tian did not die and would definitely reincarnate. However, He did not expect that Nye Tian would reincarnate so quickly. It only took him 100 years to return to the heavenly realm. Thinking of this, the corners of Emperor Ye's mouth couldn't help but curl up. He looked up to the sky and laughed, saying loudly, "Master, your son has already grown up. It won't be long before you can see the light of day again." Sovereign Yi did not expect that Nye Tian would grow so quickly. He merely used a year's time and advanced from 1st level Heavenly Emperor to 9th level Heavenly Emperor. This kind of speed was seriously perverse. Young Master's talent far surpasses ordinary people. Even the geniuses of those realms can't compare to you. It won't be long before young Master can enter the Realmverse. That will be the time when the Realmverse changes. Emperor Yi was extremely excited as he spoke with a trembling voice. "Lord Emperor Yi." But at this time, the Wayfarer interrupted Emperor Yi. His expression was rather ugly as he said, "This subordinate feels that the current young master might be in some trouble. I'm afraid that Lord Emperor Yi needs to personally make an appearance." "Amen?" Emperor Ye's gaze turned intense slightly, and he said in a cold voice, "What happened to young master?" In his view, with Nye Tian's talent, the Snow Emperor and the rest were unable to kill him. "Lord Emperor Yi." The Wayfarer's expression was solemn, his voice quivering slightly as he said, "Young Master killed Great Emperor Daynite and the Alchemy Emperor of the 9 Emperors." "What?" When Emperor Yi heard what the Wayfarer said, he suddenly gave a low roar, simply unable to believe his ears, and actually directly froze on the spot. After some time, Emperor Yi finally had a reaction. Cold, he looked at the Wayfarer and said solemnly, "Wayfarer, explain the matter clearly." "Yes." The Wayfarer nodded his head heavily and recounted everything that he saw. One had to admit that the Wayfarer arrived just in time to see the scene of Nye Tian instantly killing the Alchemy Emperor and Great Emperor Daynite. Of course, he also saw the great battle between Nye Tian and the Snow Emperor. After hearing what the Wayfarer said, Emperor Ye's entire person froze again. He said in a daze, "How is that possible? Great Emperor Daynite and the Alchemy Emperor were both peak existences of the Heaven Realm's divine realm. Nye Tian had just advanced to the 9th level Heavenly Emperor. How could he possibly instantly kill the two of them? Lord Emperor Yi, this subordinate seems to have heard others say that Lord Nye Tian merged with a demonic fire. It seems to be called the Heart of Nothingness," the Wayfarer said coolly. He heard the conversation of heavenly workers and the rest, and vaguely heard the Heart of Nothingness. But he did not know what the Heart of Nothingness was. Heart of Nothingness! Emperor Yi froze again, his expression clearly stiff. He did not have any reaction for a long time. He never would have thought that Nye Tian actually merged with the Heart of Nothingness. That was the legendary supreme demonic fire. Forget about Heavenly Emperor Realm martial artists, even Deity Realm martial artists did not dare to merge with the Heart of Nothingness. God-Fiend Origin Embryo. It must be the God-Fiend Origin Embryo. After a long time, Emperor Yi had a reaction. He murmured softly, "If young master can merge with the Heart of Nothingness, it must be because of the God-Fiend Origin Embryo in his body." But in the next instant, Emperor Ye's brows furrowed abruptly. His expression turned ugly, and the look in his eyes became more and more complicated. "Lord Emperor Yi, Lord Nye Tian killed the 9 emperors. I'm afraid this matter will be very troublesome." The Wayfarer sighed and said, "The 9 emperors are people appointed by the adjudicators to govern the Heaven Realm's divine realm. Now that 2 of them died in Lord Nye Tian's hands, the adjudicators will definitely not take this lying down." The adjudicators? Emperor Ye's brows also furrowed tightly. His expression clearly became much more solemn. He said, "None of those fellows are easy to deal with. If they know young master's identity, it will be troublesome. If Nye Tian only killed the 9 emperors, it would not be much. But once his identity was exposed, it would really be a big matter. It seems that I will have to personally make an appearance." Emperor Yi frowned and sighed deeply. The wayfarer looked at Emperor Yi and said, Lord Emperor Yi, Xue Lingtian and Lord Nietian have agreed to fight in the demonic devouring abyss in 3 days. 3 days should be enough. Emperor Yi nodded slightly. He then stretched out his palm and threw out a token. He said, The wayfarer, go to the demonic devouring abyss now. If I can't make it in time, take out this token. It should be able to buy you some time. Yes. The wayfarer took the token and replied. He bowed and left. Seeing the wayfarer's figure disappear, Emperor Yi sighed and said, If the adjudicators appear, things will become very troublesome. Then, Emperor Ye's figure disappeared into the cliff of the valley. Everything returned to normal as if nothing had happened. The one who appeared in front of the wayfarer was only Emperor Ye's soul clone. His real body was not in the heaven realm's divine realm. It was unknown whether Emperor Yi could make it to the heaven realm's divine realm in 3 days. Nietian had killed the 9 emperors. The Snow Empress would definitely use this matter to make a fuss. She might even push the death of the Illusion Emperor onto Nietian. This matter would definitely alarm the adjudicators. 3 days later, the adjudicators would most likely appear in the demonic devouring abyss. At that time, if Emperor Yi could not make it in time, Nietian would be in danger. Chapter 13:28. In the divine cold hall of the heaven realm. Nietian and the rest sat in the hall. The atmosphere was a little tense. Nietian had already checked the injuries of Mo Qianjun and the rest. Ghost Scar and Mo Qianjun were not seriously injured, and they would recover very quickly. However, Jiu Qianxing and Long Aotian were seriously injured, especially Jiu Qianxing. His martial foundation had been damaged by Duguanai. His Yuan meridians were severely damaged, and he was almost crippled. Long Aotian had the 9 Seal True Dragon body, and his martial body was unusually strong during his fight with the Snow Empress. He would recover after a few months of rest. Nietian, don't worry. I'm fine. Jiu Qianxing took the initiative to speak at this moment. He laughed heartily and said, It's just that your martial foundation has been damaged. You can just be an ordinary person in the future. It's no big deal. Brother Jiu. Nietian felt even more guilty after hearing Jiu Qianxing's words. Jiu Qianxing was a hot-tempered person. It was hard for anyone to accept falling from his peak to a cripple. He said this so that Nietian would not be so sad. Brother Jiu, don't worry. I will help you recover your strength, and I will help you advance to the godly state. Nietian looked at Jiu Qianxing with a determined look in his eyes. Jiu Qianxing was injured while protecting him. Nietian would not let him die like that. Perhaps when Cher wakes up, her blood will be able to heal Jiu Qianxing. If that didn't work, Nietian would think of something else. Brother, I will go to the demonic devouring abyss with you in 3 days. Long Aotian's voice was heard. He had not recovered from his injuries, and he spat out a mouthful of blood when he spoke loudly. Nietian shook his head and said, Aotian, the trip to the demonic devouring abyss in 3 days is to end things between me and Xue Lingtian. None of you should go. Long Aotian and the rest were already injured. If they went with him, they might become a burden. Furthermore, Nietian couldn't guarantee that the Snow Empress wouldn't use the ice-sealing fiendish seal again when they fought. Lord Ao Jian. Long Aotian still wanted to insist, but before he could speak, Frost Emperor suddenly looked at Nietian and said, If I told you not to go to the demonic devouring abyss, would you agree? What do you mean? Nietian was slightly taken aback. He had long noticed that Mao Xianglong's expression had been very ugly ever since he knew that he had killed Daynite Emperor and the others. It was obvious that he was worried about something. Lord Frostytharch, if you have anything to say, feel free to speak your mind, Nietian said without hesitation. Lord Ao Jian. Mao Xianglong's face was filled with hesitation, and his expression became even uglier. There were some things that she knew, but she couldn't say it out loud. Xianglong, is there anything you can't say at this time? Ju couldn't help but ask when she saw Mao Xianglong's troubled expression. Ju. Nie Tian frowned and said, Emperor Han has her own difficulties, don't force her. Sigh. Mao Xianglong let out a long sigh, and the hesitation in his eyes gradually dissipated. He said in a deep voice, Lord Ao Jian, at this moment, there are some things that I will no longer hide. You have actually caused a great disaster by killing Day-Night Emperor and Alchemy Emperor. What do you mean? Nie Tian was stunned again, and his eyes flickered. Mao Xianglong sighed again and said, You already know that the 9 emperors are appointed by the upper domains to rule the heaven realm. This means that no matter what the 9 emperors do, the people of the heaven realm can't kill them. Only the people of the upper domains can decide everything. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he suddenly understood. According to Mao Xianglong, he was not qualified to kill Day-Night Emperor and Alchemy Emperor. If the 9 emperors did something wrong, only the people of the upper domains could deal with it. Even the Snow Emperor couldn't do anything. What kind of nonsense is this? Nie Tian's eyes darkened, and he said in a cold voice, If I fight with the 9 emperors, can I only let him kill me, and I can't kill him? The others also had a gloomy face. They didn't expect the 9 emperors to have such a taboo identity. The Frost Empress was silent. This was the rule set by the adjudicator, and she could only abide by it. She had no right to question or change it. This was how the world was. The strong set the rules, and the weak followed them. Lord Frost Empress, if I kill the 9 emperors now, what will the people of the upper domains do? Nie Tian became cold and asked. They will come to the heaven realm and kill you. Mao Xianglong nodded slightly and said in a deep voice. Those who did not abide by the rules, of course, had to be eliminated, and there would be no mercy. Even if Nie Tian's talent was heaven-defying, he couldn't break the rules at will. Nie Tian let out a cold laugh and said with a helpless expression, So you don't want me to go to the demonic devouring abyss, do you? People from the upper realms will show up in the demonic devouring abyss. Yes. Mao Xianglong nodded slightly and said, The people of the upper domains are real godly state martial artists. Even an expert like the Snow Empress can't fight against them. If you go to the demonic devouring abyss, it will be hard for you to come back. Real godly state martial artists. Hearing the Frost Empress words, everyone was stunned, and their eyes couldn't help but tremble. Godly state martial artists had always only existed in legends, and now they were so close to them. I will definitely go to the demonic devouring abyss. I want to see how terrifying a real godly state martial artist is. Suddenly, Nie Tian stood up, and a cold look flashed in his eyes. Even if he knew that he couldn't fight against a godly state martial artist, he still had to go to the demonic devouring abyss, not only to kill the Snow Empress, but also to save Qi Wuxian. Lord Ao Jian. Mao Xianglong could feel the determination in Nie Tian's eyes, and he knew that he couldn't stop the latter. He shouted, but he couldn't say anything else. There are 3 days left, I need to cultivate in seclusion. Nie Tian's face was as deep as water, and he said lightly, then left the hall. Watching him leave, everyone's eyes couldn't help but tremble, and their faces were extremely shocked. When they heard the 2 words, godly state, their eyes were filled with shock. However, Nie Tian still didn't change his decision, and insisted on going to the demonic devouring abyss. This courage alone was worthy of respect. At this time, Tiangong suddenly laughed and said, Everyone, Nie Tian can merge with the heart of nothingness, and his strength might improve again in these 3 days. Even if he meets a legendary godly state martial artist, he might still have a chance. Well, everyone took a deep breath. Their expressions were clearly asking Tiangong, Where did you get your confidence from? Perhaps the others didn't know how terrifying the heart of nothingness was, but as a top blacksmith, how could Tiangong not know how terrifying the heart of nothingness was? Once the supreme demonic fire that contained the power to destroy the world was released, even a godly state martial artist might not be able to withstand it. The fact that Nye Tian could merge with the heart of nothingness was enough to show that his martial body was different from ordinary people. If he met a godly state martial artist, he might have a chance to fight. After leaving the hall, Nye Tian immediately returned to his residence, and after informing Mo Rushi, he returned to his room. He wanted to examine his body properly, and see what kind of changes the heart of nothingness had brought to him. Nye Tian sat cross-legged, concentrated his divine sense, and began to examine the Yuan meridian in his body. Nye Tian boy. However, at this time, in his sea of divine sense, a familiar voice suddenly sounded, with great excitement. Di Shi Tian. Hearing this voice, Nye Tian was stunned and his expression froze. He wasn't in the 3 live stone, why could he hear Di Shi Tian's voice? Chapter 1329. In the room, when Nye Tian was checking his body, Di Shi Tian's voice suddenly sounded in his mind, causing him to freeze. Didn't Di Shi Tian only appear when he entered the 3 life stone? Why did he suddenly make a sound? Could it be that the God-fiend origin embryo has awakened? This was Nye Tian's first reaction, causing him to be stunned for a moment. The God-fiend origin embryo was the first taboo in the ancient times. If it was awakened, it was impossible for him to not feel anything. At this time, Nye Tian still couldn't feel the existence of the God-fiend origin embryo. He also didn't know what kind of suppressive force his parents left on his body was. It actually made the God-fiend origin embryo invisible, even he himself couldn't feel it. Nye Tian boy, don't look anymore. Your God-fiend origin embryo hasn't awakened yet, but some strange changes have happened. Di Shi Tian's voice sounded again, with some excitement, as if he was very happy. Strange changes. Nye Tian was stunned. He didn't know what Di Shi Tian meant. Nye Tian, I didn't expect that you actually have the space-time origin fragment. It seems that I really underestimated you. Di Shi Tian said faintly. His figure actually appeared in Nye Tian's sea of consciousness. It was very clear. Just like the previous Sword Elder, he seemed to be living in Nye Tian's sea of consciousness. Nye Tian frowned tightly. He didn't know what was going on. However, when Di Shi Tian mentioned the space-time origin fragment, he had a guess. It must be that space-time crystal. The strange thing was that after the space-time crystal absorbed the 5th devil fire, space-time doomsday, it mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Could it be? At this time, Nye Tian suddenly thought of something. His face changed and he said in a daze, the space-time crystal entered the God-fiend origin embryo? That's right. Sakura's voice sounded and he laughed. Kid, you're really lucky. After the space-time origin fragment absorbed the space-time doomsday, it actually fused with the fiend god nascent embryo. Now, your fiend god nascent embryo has yet to awaken, but the space inside the nascent embryo is surprisingly big. What's even stranger is that the space-time apocalypse created a space-time gate between the origin embryo space and your sea of consciousness. That's why I can appear in your sea of consciousness. Listening to Di Shi Tian's words, Nye Tian was stunned and couldn't say a word for a long time. What Sakura said, he only understood half of it and didn't fully comprehend it. He didn't even know that the God-fiend nascent embryo had its own space. It seemed that the origin fetus space and the space-time crystal chip had fused together, and the space-time apocalypse had become a space-time gate between the origin fetus space and the sea of spiritual sense. Space-time doomsday and the 5th devil fire had actually turned the space-time chip into a space-time gate. This was too terrifying. It seemed that what Sakura said was true. That space-time chip was a fragment of the space-time origin. Regarding the 2 words origin, Nye Tian also knew very little. He had only heard that the world of martial arts was born from the origin. Moreover, the origin wasn't just one, it was divided into many kinds, such as the space-time origin, the 5 elements origin, the four elements origin, the power origin, and so on. Nyetian was also very surprised. He had picked up a space-time chip in the ice and fire world, and it turned out to be a fragment of the legendary space-time origin. Since the space-time apocalypse has already become a space-time gate between the origin embryo space and the sea of spiritual sense, can my divine sense enter the origin embryo space? Nyetian suddenly thought of this and couldn't help but ask. He was very curious about what the inside of the legendary god-fiend nascent embryo was like. You can't. Sakura laughed mischievously and said, the god-fiend nascent embryo suppression hasn't changed. If you want to enter the origin embryo space, then you must be prepared to have your divine sense suppressed to the point of collapse. Nyetian's face was filled with black lines. It seemed that the suppression inside the god-fiend nascent embryo was more terrifying than he had imagined. Next, Nyetian asked Sakura some questions, and then his divine sense entered the Xing River domain. The most important thing for him at this time was to improve his strength. In the demonic devouring abyss, it was very likely that he would encounter the legendary god realm martial artists, which would be a huge challenge. Although Nyetian had encountered many enemies that were far stronger than him before, the strength of those people was within the scope of his understanding. However, the god realm was a realm that exceeded Nyetian's understanding. It was a realm that he had never come into contact with. He didn't even know how the god realm martial artists fought. Perhaps they could directly mobilize the laws of heaven and earth, the momentum of heaven and earth, and instantly kill the opponent. If this was really the case, the trip to the demonic devouring abyss was indeed very dangerous. The Xing River domain has completely changed. Once again entering the domain space, Nyetian saw the scene in front of him, and his whole person couldn't help but be stunned. At this moment, the Xing River domain had completely changed. The 9-layered star river, the domain origin array, the raw star stone, these things were still there, but the surface of all of them was surging with a layer of black flame, surging endlessly, like a layer of black flame curtain, covering the entire Xing River domain. The power of the heart of nothingness is really too terrifying. Nyetian murmured to himself. His heart was shocked. The heart of nothingness was worthy of being one of the supreme demonic fires. The fusion with the raw star stone had completely changed the Xing River domain. Nyetian could feel that the heart of nothingness had made a qualitative leap in the power of the stars. The devouring power contained in the power of the stars had almost become violent, able to devour everything. Nyetian. At this moment, Sakura's figure suddenly appeared, and actually came directly to the Xing River domain. Huh! Nyetian was stunned. He didn't expect Sakura to appear. Sakura looked at everything in front of him. His whole person was sluggish, and he didn't react for a long time. After a long time, he finally reacted. His face was still shocked, and he said in his heart, Nyetian, it seems that I really wanted to occupy your body, but I really chose the wrong person. Even if you don't have the fiend god original embryo, I'm afraid you can still devour me. The raw star stone, this is the creation of the world. Sakura didn't say the following words, that was the secret of heaven, it couldn't be said. Sakura, what are you thinking about? Nyetian frowned and said, do you know what the raw star stone is? Previously, the heart of nothingness refused to say the nature of the raw star stone, but at this moment, Sakura's expression was strange, and it seemed that he also understood the raw star stone very well. I can't say, Sakura said in a deep voice, but then he sighed helplessly and said, Nyetian, now that the heart of nothingness and the raw star stone have merged together, it has greatly stimulated the power of the stars. But the power of destruction of the heart of nothingness is still there. If the time is long, I'm afraid it may devour your power. Nyetian's eyes slightly narrowed, and he asked, even the raw star stone can't suppress the devouring power of the heart of nothingness. He originally thought that the heart of nothingness had been completely suppressed by the raw star stone. He didn't expect that the power of destruction of the heart of nothingness was still there. The power of the raw starstone is very strong. The power you can exert now is not even a fraction of its true power. Sakra's face became serious, and he said, "Unfortunately, the speed of your awakening of the power of the stars is too slow. If the time is long, the raw starstone will not be able to suppress the heart of nothingness." Chapter 1330. Nye Tian already knew that the primal star stone had a strong suppressive force on the heart of nothingness. However, his speed of awakening the power of the heart of nothingness was too slow, and the destructive power of the heart of nothingness was getting stronger and stronger. If the time dragged on, the primal star stone would not be able to suppress the heart of nothingness. At that time, his power would be counterattacked by the heart of nothingness. The heart of nothingness is the supreme demonic fire born at the beginning of the world. How can it be so easy to suppress? Indra sighed with a playful look on his face. How much time do I have left? Nye Tian became cold and asked solemnly. Indra raised his eyebrows and said, "At least 1 year, at most 3 years, the destructive power of the heart of nothingness will completely erupt. Unless you can reach the peak of the God realm within a year, you won't be able to awaken enough power of the stars to suppress the heart of nothingness." Is it difficult to reach the peak of the God realm within a year? Nye Tian was stunned and then asked, "Is it difficult?" Hearing Nye Tian's tone, Indra laughed instead and glanced at Nye Tian. He said, "It's not difficult, it's impossible. For a God realm warrior to reach the peak of the God realm, it would take him tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. Even those true geniuses, even those supreme monstrous geniuses born with divine spark, would need at least a few thousand years to reach the peak of the God realm. Even if Nye Tian had the fiend god origin embryo and the primal starstone, it was absolutely impossible for him to reach the peak of the God realm within a year." Indra just wanted to say that this joke was not funny at all. Why? Nye Tian was stunned and couldn't help but look at Indra. Indra shook his head slightly and said, "There are some things that you won't understand if you haven't reached a certain realm." Nye Tian smiled speechlessly and had to ask, "Then how can I suppress the counterattack of the heart of nothingness?" "I have a very simple way." Indra laughed and had a strange look on his face. "What way?" Nye Tian's eyes flickered. "Fuse with another demonic flame." Sakra raised his eyebrows and smiled. The heart of nothingness was born in the nothingness at the beginning of the world's creation, and it contains the power to destroy the world. There's also the demonic fire, which was also born at the beginning of creation, but it contains the power of creation. The first demonic flame, the edge of the universe. Without waiting for Deshir Tian to finish speaking, Nye Tian's expression changed as he spoke in astonishment. "Yes." Sakra nodded slightly and smiled. "Little guy, I didn't expect you to know so many things. The boundary of the universe and the heart of nothingness are known as the supreme twin flames. The former represents creation, while the latter represents destruction. As long as you can merge with the boundary of the universe, the devouring power of the heart of nothingness will naturally disappear. Creation and destruction are sisters who reinforce and restrain each other. You've only fused with the power of destruction. Even with your godfiend nascent embryo body, you won't be able to withstand this power. Only by fusing with the power of creation again can you restore your martial body to a balanced state. Blindly relying on the suppressive power of the raw star stone to resist the heart of nothingness will only make the heart of nothingness more violent. The boundary of the universe. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed, but his face couldn't help but become worried. Sakra's words were simple, but this matter was very difficult. Being able to merge with the heart of nothingness was already a stroke of luck. Wanting to merge with the boundary of the universe was really wishful thinking. Nye Tian hadn't even seen the shadow of the boundary of the universe. "Little guy, don't think too much now. It's useless to think too much." At this time, Sakra laughed. Then, He thought of something and reminded him, I want to tell you that you'd better not use the power of the heart of nothingness. Because the more you use it, the more power the heart of nothingness will absorb, and the stronger the power of destruction will be. After saying that, Sakra laughed. His figure flickered, and he directly disappeared. He couldn't leave the space of the nascent embryo for too long. His remnant soul was still imprisoned in the space of the nascent embryo. Nye Tian was stunned on the spot, and his face was extremely ugly. I underestimated the heart of nothingness. Looks like I have to use this power less in the future. After a while, Nye Tian became cold and shook his head with a sigh. With a bitter smile, Nye Tian completely calmed down. The power of destruction of the heart of nothingness still needed some time to take effect. The demonic devouring abyss pact was the main point now. My strength has already reached the 9th level of the Heavenly Emperor. The Starry Sky ancient martial technique should be able to open all of it. Nye Tian muttered with a smile, and came to the 4th galaxy. Above the 4th galaxy, the Starry Sky ancient martial technique lay there, but outside it was surging terrifying black flames of nothingness. Starry Sky ancient martial technique, open it. Nye Tian didn't think too much. With a thought, the Starry Sky ancient martial technique slowly opened. Starry Sky ancient martial technique, Heaven and Earth craftiness Tao. Earth craftiness reverse kill, Heaven's craftiness absolute kill. In the next moment, a mighty voice resounded in the boundary space. The Starry Sky ancient martial technique surged out endless starlight runes, surging above the galaxy, shining brightly. Heaven and Earth crafty Tao. Nye Tian frowned slightly and immediately understood. The 8th and 9th forms of the Starry Sky ancient martial technique were combined forms, known as the Heaven and Earth crafty Tao. With a thought from Nye Tian, the starlight runes immediately surged towards him and surrounded his body. They actually slowly condensed into 2 giant black snakes. Nye Tian sensed the aura of the stars within the 2 black snakes and was extremely shocked. The 2 black snakes had different auras. One was the aura of the 5 elements of the earth, while the other was the aura of the 4 elements of the sky. The power of the stars was indeed terrifying. It actually condensed into such a strange giant snake. The aura of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth surging in the strange earth snake's body should be able to absorb the power of the 5 elements. The aura of the 4 elements of wind, thunder, light, and darkness surging in the strange earth snake's body should be able to absorb the aura of the 4 elements. Nye Tian murmured, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a strange smile. He said, if the heaven and earth snake fuses, wouldn't it be able to absorb the power of the 9 elements? Thinking of this, Nye Tian became excited. After a while, Nye Tian calmed down and began to practice the control of the Heaven and Earth crafty Tao. For the next 3 days, Nye Tian had been cultivating diligently. After 3 days, Nye Tian walked out of his room. His aura had become abnormally sharp, and it was even more terrifying than 3 days ago. For Nye Tian, 3 days was equivalent to a month. His strength had been completely stabilized. Nye Tian. Emo Rushi was waiting outside the room for a long time. Rushi. Nye Tian knew what Emo Rushi wanted to say. He took a step forward and pulled her into his arms. He said indifferently, don't worry. I promise you that I will come back alive. Yes. Emo Rushi nodded her head, but her eyes were filled with tears. In the end, she couldn't help but let them flow out. She knew that Nye Tian had to go to the demonic devouring abyss, and that it would be dangerous. However, she couldn't help Nye Tian with anything. She could only pray in her heart that nothing would happen to Nye Tian. After bidding farewell to Emo Rushi, Nye Tian didn't stay any longer and prepared to head to the demonic devouring abyss immediately. However, at this moment, Emperor Han and the others appeared. Emperor Han. Nye Tian nodded slightly. He wanted to leave immediately, but he didn't expect the others to be waiting for him. Master Aojian, I will go to the demonic devouring abyss with you, Mao Xianglong nodded slightly, but his eyes were firm. He said, "There are some things that only the 9 emperors can speak for. Perhaps the adjudicator will listen to my explanation." "All right." Nie Tian looked at the others. It was obvious that this was the result of their discussion. He didn't decline any more and nodded solemnly. Chapter 1331. Devouring Demon City. At the entrance of the Devouring Demon Abyss, dozens of Snow God Imperial Guards guarded the entrance. It was heavily guarded. At this moment, a man in gray stood at the entrance of the abyss with a cold smile on his face. If Nie Tian was here, he would recognize him immediately. He was one of the 9 emperors, Emperor Donghuang Dongfang Yilong. Beside Dongfang Yilong, a man in purple stood beside him. Obviously, his status was not lower than his. This man was also one of the 9 emperors, Great Emperor Ziwei. Great Emperor Ziwei was the owner of the purple demon eyes, one of the 10 Khanate extraordinary eyes. Among the 9 emperors, Great Emperor Ziwei was ranked 3rd, second only to the Snow Empress and the Illusion Emperor. Now that the Illusion Emperor was dead, Great Emperor Ziwei should be the 2nd strongest among the 9 emperors. Emperor Donghuang and Great Emperor Ziwei were here. Obviously, they were invited by the Snow Empress to deal with Nie Tian. "Great Emperor Ziwei, do you think Nie Tian will come?" Dongfang Yilong laughed, his eyes vicious. He and Nie Tian were enemies. Of course, he hoped that Nie Tian would come because the Snow Empress had laid a trap. As long as Nie Tian came, he would not be able to return. "He is here." Great Emperor Ziwei's mouth twitched as he looked into the distant void. Dongfang Yilong was slightly stunned. He did not see anything, but he did not doubt Great Emperor Ziwei's words. The latter had the purple demon eyes and could see things that ordinary people could not. At this moment, 2 figures were tens of thousands of meters away from Devouring Demon City. In the blink of an eye, they arrived above Devouring Demon City. It was Nie Tian and Frost Empress. "Frost Empress, she is here too?" Dongfang Yilong couldn't help but frown when he saw the Frost Empress and Nie Tian together. Then, he laughed and said loudly, "Nie Tian, Lord Frost Empress, Lord Snow Empress has been waiting for you for a long time." When Nie Tian saw Emperor Donghuang and Great Emperor Ziwei, he could not help but laugh. He thought to himself, "Looks like Snow Empress is ready. She is just waiting for me to walk into her trap." Of course, he knew that Emperor Donghuang and Great Emperor Ziwei were here. Boom. Nie Tian didn't say anything. He took a step forward and his aura crushed down. The entire Devouring Devil City shook, as if it was going to collapse. What a powerful aura! Great Emperor Ziwei and Emperor Donghuang looked at each other. Dongfang Ichiro, in particular, was petrified. Not long ago, he had met Nie Tian. At that time, the latter's strength was still very weak, and he could even kill him instantly. But now, Nie Tian's aura was surging and overwhelming. If it were an ordinary 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist, they would not even be able to withstand this aura. Emperor Donghuang and Great Emperor Ziwei thought to themselves that they definitely could not release such a tyrannical aura. "The 2 of you, please make way." Nie Tian's figure descended and immediately retracted his aura. There was not a single trace of origin energy ripple around him. Wild like the sea, restrained like water, Nie Tian's control of origin energy had already reached the acme of perfection. Emperor Donghuang and Great Emperor Ziwei looked at each other, then immediately stepped aside and said, "Please." Nie Tian did not stand on ceremony and directly stepped into the passageway in front of him, walking towards the Devouring Devil Abyss. "Lord Demon Sovereign, I hope you're still alive." Nie Tian walked in the passageway and muttered in his heart. This time, his most important matter coming to the Devouring Devil Abyss was to rescue Qi Wuxiaoshan. This matter was even more important than killing the Snow Emperor. Before long, the passageway in front of Nie Tian and Frost Tharch suddenly widened. The 2 did not hesitate and stepped out, entering the abyss. Their figures landed and directly appeared at the bottom of the abyss. Snow Emperor, come out! Nietian did not see the Snow Emperor appear. He growled, and immediately the surrounding fog dispersed. The scene in front of him became much clearer. Nietian, you really did not disappoint this emperor. You finally came. Immediately, the Snow Emperor's voice sounded, mixed with some sternness. His figure appeared in midair. Boom! Almost at the same time, there was suddenly a loud sound in the air, followed by the sound of metal chains moving. Nietian frowned and suddenly lifted his head. The scene that entered his eyes stunned him, and the blood in his body instantly boiled. In the sky, more than 10 metal chains coiled like giant snakes. In the center, there was a familiar figure, the Devil Emperor of the 9 underworlds, Chi Wuxiaoshan. At this moment, Chi Wuxiaoshan's body was a bloody mess. His breathing was extremely weak, and he was also unconscious. Bastard! Seeing this scene, Nietian roared angrily. Anger surged in his eyes, and he used his divine sense to investigate. He discovered that Chi Wuxiaoshan's Yuan meridians had been completely destroyed, and there was not a single trace of Yuan Qi in his body. It was obvious that the Snow Emperor did not kill Chi Wuxiaoshan, but made him suffer inhumane torture. Nietian, are you satisfied with the gift that I prepared for you? At this moment, the Snow Emperor's voice sounded again, cold and evil. Shui Lingtian. Nietian's eyes trembled as he uttered the Snow Empress name. He was like an enraged volcano that was about to erupt at any moment. Nietian, don't be so agitated. The show has just begun. However, at this moment, the Snow Emperor had a mocking look on his face. He spoke coldly, then clapped his hands and said loudly, Sky Dragon, your teacher is here. Aren't you going to come out and greet him? Sky Dragon. Hearing this name, Nietian's face darkened, and he became even angrier. Sky Dragon was his 6th disciple, the one who had betrayed his teacher. What made Nietian even angrier was that Sky Dragon had personally killed the other 3 disciples of Nietian. As the Snow Emperor's voice fell, a figure appeared in the void. It was Nietian with a cold face, and he said in a deep voice, Teacher, long time no see. Sky Dragon, it's really you. When Nietian saw the face of the figure clearly, his entire body shook like an enraged lion. The teacher and disciple had reunited under such circumstances. One could imagine the pain in Nietian's heart. Why? Nietian stared at Sky Dragon with bloodshot eyes and roared furiously. He had treated Sky Dragon well. Why did Sky Dragon betray him? Why did he kill his fellow disciples? Every man for himself, and heaven and earth destroy him. Sky Dragon's face was cold as he spoke. There was no regret in his eyes as he coldly said, You are my teacher and you have treated me well. However, this is not enough for me to sacrifice my life for you. Sometimes, people have to make some compromises in order to survive, even if the compromises are wrong. As the cold voice fell, it was like a steel needle piercing into Nietian's heart. The heart-wrenching pain almost drove him crazy. He could accept Sky Dragon's betrayal, but why did he have to kill his fellow disciples? Was it to survive? Was it really so important to live like this? Sky Dragon, didn't you prepare a small gift for your teacher? Take it out. Suddenly, the Snow Emperor's voice was filled with mockery. He was enjoying the show of a teacher and disciple falling out with each other. Yes. Sky Dragon nodded and his lips twitched. Following this, he waved his hand, and 2 steel cages appeared in the air. There was a figure imprisoned in each cage. Nietian suddenly lifted his head. When he saw the 2 faces in the cages, he froze. Chapter 1332. Han Fei. Zhang Jianqing. Seeing the 2 figures in the iron cage, Nietian screamed. The blood in his body instantly flowed backward, and he could only exhale and not inhale. His whole body was like a boiling volcano, and his whole body was ignited with terrible black flames of nothingness. Under the circumstances of extreme anger, Nie Tian could not control the heart of nothingness in his body. Sky Dragon, it seems that your teacher is very satisfied with your little gift. At this moment, Snow Emperor smiled cold, and his eyes flashed fiercely. He said faintly, "Do it, kill the two of them." At this moment, Han Fei and Zhang Jianqing were unconscious, and their breaths were weak. They were more dangerous than Qi Wuxiaoshan. As Snow Emperor's voice fell, his figure moved at the same time, and he flew towards Qi Wuxiaoshan. Obviously, he was giving Nie Tian a dilemma that he had no choice but to kill Qi Wuxiaoshan, Han Fei, and Zhang Jianqing at the same time. Nie Tian could not split himself, and could only save one side. Who should he choose to save? Bastard! When Nie Tian saw the Snow Empress and the Heavenly Dragon moving at the same time, he immediately understood what was going on. He roared, and the black flames around him surged out like a river bursting through a dam. They spread throughout the surrounding space, as if they were going to devour everything. "Lord Aojian, I'm going to save the Demon King." At the same time, Mao Xianglong's voice sounded, and then his figure flickered, and he attacked Snow Emperor. Nie Tian frowned slightly. He was not sure if Frost Emperor could stop Shuelingtian, but he had no other choice now that things had come to this. Thinking of this, Nie Tian no longer hesitated. Meteor wings appeared on his back, and he flew towards Sky Dragon with a flap of his wings. "Frost Emperor, you think too highly of yourself." On the other side, a cold voice suddenly sounded, and then a purple light flew out in the air, turned into a purple blade, and blasted towards Mao Xianglong. Mao Xianglong's beautiful eyes flickered. The purple blade was extremely fast, and she could not avoid it in an instant. At this critical moment, Mao Xianglong's body trembled, and a layer of ice crystal shield appeared around her. Boom! Crack! Immediately after, the purple blade attacked and directly bombarded the ice crystal shield. After a loud bang, the ice crystal shield shattered. Mao Xianglong's figure was like a kite with a broken string, smashing towards the bottom of the abyss. Frost Tharch! Nie Tian sensed that something was wrong. He turned around and saw that the person who attacked Frost Tharch was Great Emperor Ziwei. Great Emperor Ziwei's strength was already above Frost Thearka's to begin with. Furthermore, Great Emperor Ziwei had launched a sneak attack and used the purple demon eyes. Frost Tharch had actually been severely injured in one move. Nie Tian, it seems like your Demon King's uncle isn't as important as your disciple. The Snow Empress' cold voice rang out from the void. She sounded like she was mocking Nie Tian. After hearing the Snow Empress' words, Nie Tian felt like a knife was being twisted in his heart, and he couldn't help but pause. Nie Tian, don't worry. Leave the Demon Emperor to me. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded in Nie Tian's mind. It was extremely strange. The demonic road diagram. After hearing this voice, Nie Tian's eyes flickered and revealed a hint of passion. Nie Tian didn't expect that the demonic road diagram would appear here. Even with his senses, he couldn't detect the latter's existence. This made him very surprised. Although he didn't know how strong the demonic road diagram was, he could only choose to believe it. With this thought, Nie Tian steadied himself and rushed towards the Sky Dragon. "You don't know your place." At this moment, a cold voice rang out. Immediately after, a figure appeared. It was Dongfang Yilong. Great Emperor Ziwei and Dongfang Yilong appeared at the same time. One stopped Frost Tharch and the other stopped Nie Tian. "Get lost!" Nie Tianling looked at Dongfang Yilong coldly. With a low roar, he struck with his sword. A mighty sword shadow appeared, and the black flames of nothingness pressed forward like a violent storm. Dongfang Yilong wanted to fight back, but he felt the space around him being suppressed. He couldn't even circulate his vital meridians. Ah! Before he could react, Dongfang Yilong let out a shrill scream. His whole body was struck down by the sword's shadow and smashed towards the ground. As one of the 9 emperors, He didn't even have a chance to attack in front of Nie Tian. When the Sky Dragon saw this, he couldn't help but gasp. He instantly felt a chill down his spine. He didn't expect Nie Tian's strength to reach such a level. Dong Wang couldn't even block a single attack from him. At this moment, the Sky Dragon frowned slightly, and there was a slight pause. Absolute confinement. Nie Tian seized the opportunity. His eyes trembled slightly, and he activated the holographic confinement and absolute tremor at the same time. A huge spiritual deterrence instantly enveloped the Sky Dragon. The Sky Dragon's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, his divine sense trembled, and he instantly fell into a daze. Nie Tian's figure turned into a black lightning. In an instant, he rushed over madly. A huge aura spread out, and the Sky Dragon's figure was immediately forced to retreat. Nie Tian stepped in the air and came in front of the two metal cages. He felt that Han Fei and Zhang Jianqing's aura were still there, and he heaved a sigh of relief. He stretched out his hand, and a ball of black flames surged out of his palm, which directly melted the metal cages. Then, the 3 live stone appeared. Nie Tian sent Han Fei and Zhang Jianqing into the 3 live stone, and said loudly, "Corpse Luo, I'll leave the 2 of them to you. Don't worry, master." The voice of the Corpse Luo Demon Lord came from the 3 live stone, and then disappeared. On the other side, the Snow Emperor was just about to kill Qi Wuxiao, but he felt a ball of scorching aura coming from behind. He couldn't help but frown, and his eyes were slightly dazed. "Shui Lingtian, leave the Demon Emperor to me. You don't have to worry about him." Then, an extremely mocking voice was heard, and a ball of red flames turned into thousands of fire snakes, which surged towards the Snow Emperor. Such a strong aura! The Snow Emperor frowned slightly. He didn't expect such a terrifying person to be hiding beside him. Even Nie Tian couldn't sense the demonic Lu Tu, so how could the Snow Emperor? The demonic Lu Tu had been hiding in the demonic devouring abyss for 3 days, and he hadn't moved at all. His entire aura had fused with the demonic devouring abyss. This was his patience. "He's just a piece of trash. So what if I give him to you?" The Snow Emperor laughed cold, and his figure retreated rapidly. If he tried to kill Qi Wuxiao, he would definitely be able to, but he would have to take a direct hit from the demonic Lu Tu, and it was very likely that he would be injured. After weighing the pros and cons, the Snow Emperor felt that a useless Demon Emperor wasn't worth the risk. Moreover, he had already arranged everything. Nie Tian would definitely die in the demonic devouring abyss, and when that happened, Qi Wuxiao would also die. "Thank you." The demonic Lu Tu let out a weird laugh, and his figure turned into a red flame. He flew across the sky, and directly cut off the metal chains that imprisoned Qi Wuxiao, and took him away. There's a price to pay to save someone. At that moment, the Snow Emperor laughed coldly, and he struck out with his palm. A giant hand of ice appeared in the sky, and it pressed towards the demonic Lu Tuesday, that's not for sure. The demonic Lu Tu let out another weird laugh, and his body turned into a ball of fire, and he passed through the giant hand of ice. When the Snow Emperor saw this, his eyes trembled and his face darkened. Chapter 1333. Inferno Devil Lu Mo. When the Snow Empress saw the face of the person in front of her, she could not help but frown. She had never thought that Lu Mo would still be alive. "Shui Lingtian, are you surprised to see that I am still alive?" Lu Mo chuckled. "Back when I fought with Nie Tian and was injured, you ambushed me, right?" Like Qi Wuxiao, Lu Mo had also fought with Nie Tian. Just like Qi Wuxiao, he had also been ambushed by the Snow Empress. He had been hit by the Snow Empress' palm and thought he would die for sure. However, he met Ren Huang Yi and was saved. "So what if it was me?" The Snow Empress smiled coldly. Her expression became gloomy again. "Oh!" Lu Mo let out a strange cry. Full of mockery, he said disdainfully, The 9 emperors are actually an expert at ambushing. You have really opened my eyes. With that, Lu Mo's figure flickered. He came to Nie Tian's side and handed Qi Wuxioshan to Nie Tian. Nie Tian sensed that Qi Wuxioshan's aura was still there. His expression relaxed a little. He also put Qi Wuxioshan into the Stone of 3 Lives. Thanks a lot, Demon Path, Nie Tian said sincerely, taking a glance at the Demon Path. You're welcome. Lu Mo nodded and smiled. At this time, the Frost Empress also appeared and came to Nie Tian's side. Frost Empress, are you okay? Nie Tian looked at the Frost Empress with a serious expression. I'm fine. Mao Xianglong smiled and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She was one of the 9 emperors. Great Emperor Ziwei did not dare to kill her. Sky Dragon, attack! At this time, the Snow Empress' voice sounded again, cold and murderous. Sky Dragon recovered from his daze. His eyes trembled violently. He could not hide the fear in his heart. He was only close to his peak strength. How could he be a match for Nie Tian? He had just seen that even Donghuang, who had the will of the 9 emperors, could not withstand one move from Nie Tian. Oh! The Snow Empress' face darkened when she saw that Sky Dragon was stunned. She said, Sky Dragon, dogs have to listen to their masters. Are you going to defy me? Sky Dragon doesn't dare. Sky Dragon's face turned as white as a sheet and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. When Nie Tian saw this scene, his face was extremely gloomy. Seeing his own disciple being treated like a dog, he felt even more pain in his heart. However, all of this was caused by Sky Dragon himself. The evils brought upon themselves were the hardest to bear. Since you don't dare, then make your move. The Snow Empress' expression was extremely gloomy as she spoke in a cold voice. Sky Dragon stood in a daze on the elemental energy. His hand was holding onto the longsword, but his arm was trembling uncontrollably. There's no need. Nie Tian couldn't stand it anymore. He moved and said in a deep voice, Sky Dragon, you are my disciple after all. If I can't let you live like a human, then I can only let you die like a human. As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Tian moved and appeared in front of Sky Dragon in a flash. The sword Absolute Heaven Slash landed with a loud bang. The surging sword essence whistled in the air, and was filled with the intention to kill. Teacher! Sky Dragon's eyes trembled and the fear in his heart spread to his face. His knees couldn't support him anymore and he knelt down abruptly. At this moment, he finally felt regret. However, it was too late. Nie Tian's expression was cold and stern, but his heart was trembling. He said with hatred, Sky Dragon, I don't blame you for betraying me. However, you shouldn't have killed your fellow disciple. I can't forgive you for this. As he spoke in a deep voice, the shadow of the sword slashed down. Sky Dragon's face froze for an instant. Suddenly, he opened his mouth as though he wanted to say something, but he didn't have the chance to. Boom! As the shadow of the sword whizzed past, Sky Dragon's body shook. He couldn't withstand the pressure of the sword essence and broke into pieces, turning into a ball of blood light. At this moment, Nie Tian's eyes flickered intensely. There was a crystalline object surging in his eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. He had killed his own disciple with his own hand. This was an extremely painful feeling, and he would remember it for the rest of his life. For a moment, Nie Tian was somewhat absent-minded. When the Snow Empress saw this scene from afar, she wasn't surprised at all. Instead, the corner of her mouth twitched slightly as she revealed an evil smile. Nie Tian, be careful. At this moment, the luminous demon too suddenly sensed something and exclaimed. When Nie Tian heard the exclamation, he focused his gaze. He saw countless black runes surging out from the blood light in front of him and pressing down on him. Oh no! When he sensed the aura within the black runes, Nie Tian's expression suddenly changed, and he knew that something was amiss. Black flames surged out of his body, but the black runes were like maggots in his bones. They directly entered his body and locked onto his yuan meridians. Soul-locking terror curse. When Ye Tian felt that his yuan meridians were locked by the black runes, his face darkened and he exclaimed. The black runes were none other than one of the three great evil curses in the heaven domain, the soul-locking terror curse. In his previous life, Nye Tian had died from the soul-locking terror curse. The scariest thing about the soul-locking terror curse was that it could seal a martial artist's yuan meridians and soul, causing the martial artist to be unable to use any yuan qi or mental strength. Nye Tian, you finally fell for it. At this moment, the Snow Empress' voice rang out. She was extremely cold as she said, I have nurtured the soul-locking terror curse in Sky Dragon's body, and it is already very strong. As long as you kill him, the soul-locking terror curse will enter your body. Everything is going very smoothly, isn't it? Ha ha. At the end of her sentence, the Snow Empress actually laughed maniacally. At this moment, Nye Tian suddenly understood something. He bellowed angrily, despicable. The Snow Empress knew that Sky Dragon was not Nye Tian's match, but she still wanted the latter to attack. So it was to release the soul-locking terror curse in Sky Dragon's body. The Snow Empress knew that the moment Nye Tian killed Sky Dragon, he would definitely feel heartache. Heartache would cause him to lower his guard. Without any guard, he would definitely be affected by the soul-locking terror curse. Sky Dragon, this was the Snow Empress killer move. Damn it. Lumengtu and the Frost Empress instantly understood. Their expressions changed and they shouted angrily. Who would have thought that the Snow Empress, as one of the 9 emperors, would actually use such a despicable method? Nye Tian, accept your death obediently. The Snow Empress laughed coldly, and killing intent rose from her body, revealing her killing intent. Nye Tian stood in the void. His face turned black. He wanted to force out the soul-locking terror curse. Boom. Just at this moment, black flames of nothingness suddenly surged out from the 10th origin meridian in his body. They were like raging waves that surged endlessly within his body and roared fiercely. At this moment, Nye Tian felt as if his entire body was about to be torn apart. Every inch of his bones and skin was in so much pain that he could not help but howl in pain. Die. When the Snow Empress saw this, she thought that Nye Tian was tortured by the soul-locking terror curse. Without hesitation, she roared and moved. The right hand of God appeared, and she threw a punch. Watch out! Lumengtu shouted. His body turned into a ball of flames that instantly spread into a sea of fire. It pressed towards the Snow Empress. At the same time, the black flames in Nye Tian's body surged and swallowed the soul-locking terror curse. The black flames on Nye Tian's face dissipated. He was stunned. One of the 3 evil curses in the heaven domain, the soul-locking terror curse, was swallowed by the black flames. Only now did Nye Tian truly understand how formidable the heart of nothingness was. His body shuddered, emitting violent black flames of nothingness. His eyes were burning with fury. Chapter 1334. Terrifying black flames of nothingness burst out of Nye Tian's body and wreaked havoc in the air, giving rise to an extremely terrifying aura. At this moment, he finally understood how terrifying the heart of nothingness was. It was no wonder that even the origin star stones couldn't completely resist its devouring power. The soul-sealing terror curse was one of the 3 great curses in the divine realm. Nye Tian naturally understood how terrifying it was. However, the soul-sealing terror curse was instantly devoured by the heart of nothingness. This showed how perverse the heart of nothingness was. After the soul-sealing terror curse was devoured, Nye Tian's aura rose. The black flames around him surged like waves as they surged towards the Snow Empress. Rumble! A terrifying sound rang out in the air. The devouring aura of the black flames was like a dark cloud, and a deafening rumble could be heard. The Snow Empress furrowed her brow when she saw this. Her eyes trembled, and an unconcealable look of shock appeared on her face. She couldn't imagine how Nyetian could break free from the soul-sealing terror curse so quickly. At this moment, the Snow Empress could sense how powerful Nyetian's aura was. She was horrified, and her body paused for a moment. However, she was someone who had experienced countless battles. She knew that if she retreated now, she would definitely die. Right now, she had to grit her teeth and move forward to fight Nyetian head-on. Boom! The strength in the Snow Empress' right hand surged as she thought of this. Thousands of golden fist shadows appeared in the air, and came crashing over like raging waves. Nyetian didn't even frown when he saw this. Instead, the killing intent in his eyes became even sharper. The 10th origin meridian in his body revolved crazily. Waves of immense star power fused perfectly with the black flames, and a terrifying devouring aura was released, as if it wanted to devour heaven and earth. Bam, bam, bam! In the next moment, countless golden fist shadows descended and bombarded the sea of black flames. However, they were like clay oxen entering the sea, and were directly devoured by the waves of black flames. The Snow Empress' expression changed when she saw this, and her eyes trembled violently. He had never expected Nyetian's devouring power to be so powerful. It was as if he could completely disregard his right hand of God's attack. One had to know, the right hand of God was formed from the fusion of Saint bones. Each palm attack was sufficient to make peak heavenly emperor powerhouses suffer heavy injuries. However, Nyetian completely ignored this kind of attack. It was too terrifying. Shuelingtian, prepare to die. Nyetianling laughed. His ice-cold and determined voice sounded like a death knell as it rang out beside the Snow Empress. This was a good opportunity for him to severely injure or even kill the Snow Empress before she completely unleashed her ice-sealing fiendish seal. Boom! Bang! At this moment, waves of black flames surged over, and the Snow Empress' body was flung back amidst a muffled boom. She drew a blinding, blood-colored trail in the air. Luming Tu and the others sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw this. Their faces were filled with shock. The Snow Empress of the 9 Emperors, known as a demigod, had actually been sent flying after a head-on clash with Nyetian. This was too unbelievable. Nyetian's current strength was too terrifying. It was almost close to the godly state's fighting strength. Luming Tu was especially shocked. He had seen Nyetian 3 days ago, and the latter definitely did not have this kind of fighting strength then. In just 3 days, Nyetian seemed to have completely fused with the Heart of Nothingness. He could perfectly control the Heart of Nothingness's power. Nyetian is indeed someone with the Godfiend origin embryo. He's simply a freak. Luming Tu thought to himself. His eyes were filled with great shock. Lord Snow Empress! Great Emperor Ji Wei exclaimed when he saw the Snow Empress being sent flying by Nyetian. The Snow Empress was in midair. Her entire body suddenly surged with endless frost, and her figure stabilized in the void. At this moment she was in an extremely sorry state. Her entire body was dripping with blood, and her face was a mess of flesh and blood. She could barely make out her human form. She had never expected Nyetian's strength to be so terrifying. 3 days ago, she had still thought that she could fight Nyetian. But now, she had been defeated by him in a single move. The 9 Emperors? Nyetian looked at the sorry state the Snow Empress was in. His lips curled into a cold smile. He mocked, "You can't even withstand a single blow. Nyetian, you." The Snow Empress' eyes flashed. She could not hide the fear in her eyes. Her body trembled slightly. Her mouth was wide open, but she could not say anything. It was obvious that the previous blow had injured her severely. She had almost lost the ability to fight again. Nyetian's lips curled into a cold smile. He was actually quite shocked. He did not expect the Heart of Nothingness to be so powerful after fusing with the power of the stars. Before the Snow Empress could finish speaking, Nyetian said coldly, "Snow Empress, do you think that using the ice-sealing devilish mark to threaten me will work?" His eyes were very cold. Right now, Nye Tian was no longer afraid of the Snow Empress ice-sealing devilish mark. He was very confident that he could protect himself, Lu Moltu, and the Frost Empress. Furthermore, this was the demonic devouring abyss. It was originally the bottom of an abyss where time and space had collapsed. It was not a big deal to be destroyed again. The Snow Empress furrowed her brow. Her face turned pale, and beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. Nye Tian, do you know who I am? The Snow Empress suddenly frowned and spoke in a cold voice. Are you finally going to use the so-called adjudicator? Nye Tianling laughed coldly. The disdain in his eyes deepened. The 9 emperors were actually using someone else to threaten him in order to preserve his life. What a joke. The Snow Empress was stunned and asked, You know about the adjudicator? Then, he looked at the Frost Empress and immediately understood. He said coldly, Mao Xianglong, do you know that revealing the existence of the adjudicator is a taboo for the 9 emperors? Only the 9 emperors knew about the adjudicator. No one else could know about it. The Snow Empress did not expect the Frost Empress to tell Nye Tian about the adjudicator. The 9 emperors taboo? The Frost Empress said coldly, When you killed the Illusion Emperor, did you think about the 9 emperors taboo? The Snow Empress had even killed the Illusion Emperor. How could she still have the face to mention the 9 emperors taboo to the Frost Empress? Mao Xianglong, you. The Snow Empress frowned. Her face was extremely gloomy. She growled, Prepare to face the wrath of the adjudicator. Humph. At this moment, Nye Tianling laughed. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He said, Shui Lingtian, do you think you can survive until the adjudicator arrives? Nye Tian could tell that the Snow Empress was obviously stalling for time and waiting for the adjudicator to arrive. However, he would not give the Snow Empress the time to do so. As soon as he finished speaking, the meteor wings appeared on Nye Tian's back. He moved and leaped into the sky. Then, he folded his wings and a ray of black flame whizzed out like a sharp blade towards the Snow Empress. Nye Tian, you can't kill me! The Snow Empress screamed when she saw what was happening. Her entire body surged with frost and formed an ice shield. She had finally used the power of the ice-sealing demonic seal. Chapter 1335. Kaboom! In the air, the black flame blades bombarded the ice shield. A loud explosion sounded, and a glaring crack appeared on the ice shield. The Snow Empress was inside the shield, but she still felt the huge impact. Her body trembled slightly, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The ice shield formed by the 7th seal, the ice-sealing seal, was cracked by Nye Tian's attack. Nye Tian's attack power was shocking. Shui Lingtian, prepare to die. Nye Tian stood in midair, and the meteor wings behind him suddenly enlarged. When fully extended, they were thousands of meters long. Terrifying black flames surged on them, and they looked extremely strange and frightening. Lumo Tu and the others looked at Nye Tian in the sky with strange expressions, as if they were looking at a monster. Boom! 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 As soon as Nye Tian's voice fell, another 3 black flame blades appeared. They were like sharp arrows that shot towards the Snow Empress. Crack! 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 The black flame blades were extremely fast. They bombarded the ice shield, and another 3 glaring cracks appeared. The Snow Empress' body trembled uncontrollably, and she spat out blood continuously. At this moment, she looked at Nye Tian with a look of fear and dread. For the first time, she felt a genuine murderous intent, as if death was about to descend. The 7th seal, the ice-sealing seal, is indeed a little tricky. Nye Tian looked at the Snow Empress, and his lips curled into a cold smile. He said mockingly, I want to see how long the ice-sealing seal can last. As soon as he finished speaking, his wings shook and countless black flame blades appeared in the air. They were like arrows that filled the sky and they came crashing down. Bang, bang, bang! Amidst the muffled sounds, the ice shield was on the verge of collapse, as if it would completely collapse at any moment. The seventh seal was indeed terrifying, but it could not withstand Nye Tian's concentrated attacks. If this continued, it would not be long before the seventh seal completely collapsed, and that would be the Snow Empress' end. The Snow Empress' face was as pale as a sheet, and her eyes flickered intensely. The fear in her heart was magnified limitlessly through her eyes. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that one day he would be used as a live target by others. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. The Snow Empress was like a piece of fat meat on a chopping board, and she was at the mercy of Nye Tian. She couldn't retaliate at all. Snow Empress, it's time to end this. At this time, Nye Tian's cold voice sounded, and his body released extremely surging black flames of nothingness, perfectly fusing with the power of the stars. Starfire burning sea. As he growled, Nye Tian struck out with his palm, and a line of fire whizzed out. Following which, it formed a sea of fire that pressed down on the Snow Empress. No. The Snow Empress realized that something was amiss. She howled tragically, but it was too late. Terrifying waves of fire roared out, like a ferocious beast that could devour everything. There was a violent explosion in the void, and the frosty chaos formed by the Ice Seal Demon's seal suddenly collapsed. At this moment, the Snow Empress felt death approaching. The waves of black flames that were pressing down on her were like death knells that whistled in her ears. The Snow Empress is going to die. Lemengtu and the others watched the scene in front of them, and their hearts trembled violently. No one had expected that the Snow Empress, one of the 9 emperors, would end in such a manner. However, right at the critical moment, an unexpected event occurred. "Don't hurt him!" A cold voice suddenly sounded in the void. It was extremely cold and did not contain any emotion, as if a god had given a divine decree. "Lord Adjudicator!" The Snow Empress cried out in surprise when she heard this voice. She was ecstatic. "Adjudicator!" Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, but his hands did not stop. Instead, they pressed down even more wildly. He knew that the Adjudicator would appear, but he did not expect him to appear at this time. Since he had already attacked, there was no need to stop. The Adjudicator wanted to protect the Snow Empress' life, but Nye Tian wanted to kill her. A surprised voice sounded in the void. The person who had come did not expect Nye Tian to completely ignore his warning. "Brat, ignoring the Adjudicator is a huge taboo." The cold voice rang out once again, and the void shook violently. Following which, a huge palm appeared and grabbed the Snow Empress from the black flames. Nye Tian was stunned by the scene in front of him, and his eyes trembled. The Adjudicator was indeed a godly state cultivator. He actually had such extraordinary methods to save the Snow Empress from the brink of death. When the others saw this, they also froze on the spot, unable to react for a long time. In the next moment, a figure descended majestically. He was not tall, but his aura was like the mountains and the seas, and the heavens and earth seemed small in front of him. "This is the legendary Adjudicator?" Nye Tian suddenly raised his head and looked straight at the person who had come. Although his eyes were flickering, he did not evade at all. "Lord!" At this time, the Frost Tharch and the great Emperor of Ziwei reacted and spoke in unison, bowing respectfully. It was obvious that the 9 Thearchs knew the person in front of them. This was the Adjudicator they spoke of. The Adjudicator ignored the Frost Tharch and the others, but his eyes were looking at Nye Tian. When he saw the latter's eyes clearly, his face could not help but sink, and he said in his heart, "This brat's eyes are so cold, and he is actually not afraid of me. It's a little strange." Generally speaking, when a cultivator below the godly state encountered a godly state cultivator, they would not dare to look him in the eye. Just the pressure from the aura alone was unbearable. However, Nye Tian completely ignored the Adjudicator's aura, which was really a little strange. At this time, the Adjudicator seemed to notice something. He looked down at his arm, and it was actually slightly charred, causing his expression to change involuntarily, and he directly exclaimed, "The heart of nothingness." When the adjudicator was saving the Snow Empress just now, one of his arms directly reached into the black flames of nothingness, and he was actually injured. A heavenly Emperor realm cultivator could actually injure him. This made the adjudicator feel incredulous. "You integrated with the heart of nothingness?" The adjudicator was stunned, looking at Nye Tian with a burning gaze as he asked in surprise. The adjudicator naturally knew what the heart of nothingness was, but he clearly did not expect that a heavenly Emperor realm cultivator could actually integrate with the heart of nothingness. "So what if I am?" Nye Tianling responded coldly, not showing the slightest reverence because of the other party's identity and strength. What he advocated was that everyone was equal. Whether it was a godly state cultivator or an ordinary person, in his eyes, they were all the same. There was no difference. And the adjudicator's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect Nye Tian's attitude to be so cold. He then sneered and said, "Brat, you still don't know who this seed is, right?" "I don't know who you are, and I have no interest in knowing." Nye Tian looked at the adjudicator, his eyes flashing with a cold intent, and said, "But I must kill the people around you." "Must kill." The adjudicator was taken aback again, and then his face became very gloomy. Nye Tian's attitude had aroused his dissatisfaction. However, he seemed to be very interested in Nye Tian's talent, so he suppressed the anger in his heart and wanted to say something. "My lord, this person killed the Illusion Sovereign, Day-Night Emperor, and Alchemy Emperor." Suddenly, the Snow Empress spoke, her eyes vicious. Chapter 1336. Originally, the adjudicator admired Nye Tian's talent very much, but when he heard the Snow Empress words, his face suddenly turned cold. Nye Tian had killed the 9 emperors, which was a taboo. This was something that could not be forgiven. The Snow Empress was indeed shameless, directly pushing the Illusion Emperor's death to Nye Tian. Lord Illusion Emperor is not." At this moment, the Frost Empress reacted and hurriedly tried to explain for Nye Tian. "Shut up." Without waiting for the Frost Empress to finish, the adjudicator directly interrupted her. His cold eyes locked onto Nye Tian, and he said in a deep voice, "Brat, did you really kill the 9 emperors?" "So what if I did?" Nye Tianling replied coldly, not bothering to explain or argue. He knew that even if he tried to defend himself, this adjudicator would not listen to him. Moreover, he had indeed killed Emperor Day-Night and the Dan Emperor. Just these 2 alone were enough for the adjudicator to sentence him to death. "Brat, you are too insolent." The adjudicator's deep voice exploded like thunder. "The 9 emperors are the people appointed by the adjudicator to rule the heaven realm. How can you kill them?" "So what if they are appointed by the adjudicator?" Nye Tian already knew that the adjudicator would say this, so he said in a cold voice, "If the 9 emperors want to kill me, should I just stand there and let them kill me? The 9 emperors are also human, and they will also make mistakes. If they do something wrong, they will have to pay the price." "Brat!" The adjudicator's eyes became gloomy, and he said, "If the 9 emperors do something wrong, it is not your turn to make a move. You are not qualified to kill them." The adjudicator had never thought that he would actually meet such an insolent person when he came to the heaven realm, completely not putting him in his eyes. "Whether I am qualified or not, it is not up to you to decide." Nye Tian stared straight at the adjudicator and said, "In my eyes, no matter who it is, as long as they offend me, I can kill them. Be it the 9 emperors or the adjudicator, they are no different from anyone else." "Brat, you're courting death." When the adjudicator heard Nye Tian comparing him to other people, he immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. His aura surged, forming a frightening pressure that came crashing down on Nye Tian. Nye Tian's brows knit together slightly, yet he remained fearless, and a sword aura that shot into the sky surged around him. Rumble! In the void a loud sound was heard. The two forces collided in the air, shaking the heavens and the earth. The space trembled. Nietion's figure trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back while a wisp of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. A God realm martial artist was indeed terrifying. Their aura was unimaginably strong. Even though Nietion had fused with the heart of nothingness, he was still unable to contend against an adjudicator. Nietion's abilities had already far surpassed the Snow Empress, but he was still a far cry from the adjudicator. And, after repelling Nietion, what flashed in the adjudicator's eyes was not elation, but greater shock. The aura pressure just now, he already went all out, and it actually directly forced Nietion back. This was simply something unimaginable. He was a deity realm martial artist, while Nietion was a heavenly emperor realm martial artist. There was a qualitative difference between the two. Deity realm martial artists, those were people who condensed a divine spark within their bodies, capable of contending with heaven and earth. Divine spark was the symbol of a deity realm martial artist, and it was even something even more terrifying than a primordial spirit. Want to kill a deity realm martial artist, one must destroy their divine spark. Nietion did not have a divine spark. How could he contend head-on with a deity realm martial artist? The adjudicator's brows furrowed, his expression becoming appalled. He had lived for several tens of thousands of years, and it was his first time seeing such a terrifying heavenly emperor realm martial artist. It was inconceivable. The others were also stunned on the spot. They all did not think that Nietion's strength was actually so terrifying. "Brat, who exactly are you?" The adjudicator's gaze slightly calmed down, and he spoke in a deep voice, actually with a trace of fear. "I am called Nietion," Nietionling replied coldly. "Nie." Hearing Nietion's name, the adjudicator was slightly stunned, as if he was very interested in his surname, and even a little nervous. "Are you from the heaven domain?" The adjudicator calmed down after a long time, and continued to ask. "Yes," Nietion replied. The adjudicator frowned, and his expression seemed to relax a little. He murmured in his heart, "If he is from the heaven domain, even if his surname is Nie, he must be an unimportant person. I am going to kill the people around you now, please step aside." At this time, Nietionling spoke coldly. He did not give up on killing the Snow Emperor just because the adjudicator came. Today, he must kill the Snow Emperor. "My lord, this person killed the Illusion Emperor and the others. We must not let him go." The Snow Emperor's gaze tensed up, and his expression became obviously nervous as he said anxiously, "Kid, your talent is not bad, and you have a very good chance of entering the territory. But unfortunately, you killed the 9 emperors. As the adjudicator, this seat will not allow you to live." The adjudicator frowned, and his eyes released a cold, killing intent. "Then let's fight." Nietion did not explain anything, and he let out a deep roar, and his whole body was full of killing intent. This world was like this, and the strong had the absolute right to speak. Even if the 9 emperors made a mistake, they were not people that Nietion could kill. Seeing Nietion's aura, Lu Montu and the others were stunned, and they stared at the latter with wide eyes. Fighting with a god realm martial artist, Nietion was simply a madman. I want to see how strong a legendary god realm martial artist is. Nietion wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his whole body was full of killing intent. "Conceited brat, today, this seat will let you understand just how great the disparity between Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists and Deity realm martial artists is." The adjudicator laughed coldly, his palm reaching out. A surging vortex actually appeared. In just an instant, the vortex rapidly expanded and spread in the void, enveloping the space within 10,000 meters. A layer of water flowed in the space, and it was extremely strange. What a terrifying aura! Nietion felt a mysterious power surging in the surroundings, and it was actually suppressing his yuan meridians. "Stinking brat, this seat is using God's domain. In this seat's domain, You can only obediently wait for death." The adjudicator sneered, and then he slapped out a palm, and a giant water snake appeared in the void, opened its giant mouth, and attacked Nyetian. Nyetian's eyes slightly narrowed, and he seemed to understand something. He guessed that the adjudicator in front of him was a water attribute martial artist. It seemed that God realm martial artists were also divided into attribute. In the God's domain, Nyetian's Yuan meridians were suppressed, but his 10th Yuan meridian was not suppressed. Sinister Earth Kill. Nyetian's eyes darkened, and he let out a low roar. His whole body released a huge amount of star energy, and he immediately used one of the 2 ultimate moves of the Starry Sky ancient martial technique, Sinister Earth Kill. Boom! The star energy surged out, and the void trembled slightly. A giant black snake appeared, and with a sinister roar, it directly rushed over. Boom! 2 giant snakes, one black and one white, collided with each other, causing the void to tremble. A terrifying power wreaked havoc, and then it disappeared in an instant, absorbed by the God's domain. The terrifying God's domain could not only suppress a martial artist's Yuan meridians, but it could also absorb all kinds of energy. However, at this moment, the adjudicator's eyes flashed violently, and his face was filled with astonishment. He could not understand at all. Nyetian's Yuan meridians were clearly suppressed, so how could he still release such a terrifying power? At this moment, he realized that the silver-haired martial artist in front of him was an extremely strange opponent. At this moment, the adjudicator saw Nyetian as a real opponent. Chapter 1337. In the demonic devouring abyss, the adjudicator stood tall in the sky, his eyes cold and murderous. He did not expect Nyetian's strength to be so strong, far beyond his expectations. The more it was like this, the more he wanted to kill Yifutian. Someone like Nyetian, once he entered the territory, he would definitely be like a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. Nyetian looked at the adjudicator in shock. He was shocked by the power of the heaven and earth crafty Tao. It could actually fight against a godly state martial artist head-on. This kid is too scary. He must not be allowed to live. The adjudicator thought to himself, the murderous intent in his eyes intensified. In the next moment, the adjudicator moved and flipped his palm, mobilizing the laws of heaven and earth. The momentum of heaven and earth changed, and a huge handprint appeared in the void, blasting towards Nyetian. Nyetian frowned slightly. He could feel that the power of this palm was even more terrifying than the previous one. Heavenly crafty final hit. Without hesitation, violent star power surged out of Nyetian's body, and another giant black snake appeared and whizzed out. Kaboom! Once again, the void shook and endless power raged, but was instantly absorbed by the god's domain. Nyetian's body trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned slightly pale. The power of a godly state martial artist was still powerful, and he could not contend with it now. Seeing that Nyetian was repelled, the adjudicator frowned slightly, and his face became even more gloomy. Nyetian was able to block 2 of his attacks, which was far beyond his expectations. The others were also stunned. If they did not know Nyetian's identity, they would have thought that this was a battle between 2 godly state martial artists. The Snow Emperor was frightened, and his face was as white as a sheet. At this moment, he realized that Nyetian's strength had far surpassed his, and could be said to be infinitely close to the godly state. It had only been a year since Nyetian had returned to the heaven realm. This kind of cultivation speed was shocking and made people's hair stand on end. If not for the adjudicator's timely arrival, the Snow Empress would have already become a corpse. "Brat, you've really angered this seat." The adjudicator frowned, his face dark and gloomy, and the killing intent in his eyes became even more obvious. He quickly flipped his palms, and the strange vortex appeared once again. It suddenly trembled, and a huge and boundless force burst out. A wave that was visible to the naked eye appeared in the air, and immediately after, it turned into a frightening wave of chi, rolling and pressing down on Nie Tian. Boom! Billowing waves of chi violently swept over, as if wanting to devour everything. Nie Tian sensed that something was amiss. His eyes narrowed slightly, and the absolute heaven slash appeared in his hand. His body released a violent blood chi, and he forcibly activated the sword sealing forbidden array. Blood-colored runes appeared and revolved around Nie Tian's body. The power of the forbidden formation instantly condensed, turning into a giant blood-colored sword that enveloped his body. The adjudicator couldn't help but frown when he saw this scene. He immediately understood that Nie Tian was trying to use the sword formation to resist the pressure of the god's domain. At the moment, Nie Tian's 9 primordial meridians were being suppressed. Only by using the sword formation to resist the pressure of the god's domain could he alleviate the pressure of his primordial meridians. Only then would he be able to unleash the power of the sovereign dragon vein to a greater extent. Boom! In the next moment, a huge wave of dragon chi surged out from behind Nie Tian, and a scarlet golden sea of lightning appeared. A 3,000-meter-long scarlet golden dragon appeared, and its terrifying body was surrounded by violent black flames of nothingness. Not only had the heart of nothingness fused with the 10th primordial starstone, but it had also fused with the 9 dragon veins. Roar! The scarlet golden dragon appeared, and it roared at the sky. Its dragon might shook the world, shaking the earth. Dragon vein! The adjudicator's eyes suddenly trembled, and he exclaimed, "You actually have the dragon vein." He clearly didn't expect that Nie Tian not only had the heart of nothingness, but also the dragon vein. However, he was very puzzled. How could the heart of nothingness and the dragon vein coexist? With the heart of nothingness's devouring power, no dragon vein could resist. Of course, it was impossible for him to know that Nie Tian still had the primordial star stone in his body, which could temporarily suppress the heart of nothingness's devouring power. Nie Tian is too terrifying. Lemengtu and the rest retreated repeatedly, shocked by Nie Tian's astonishing strength. The shock in their hearts was all revealed on their faces. Rumble! High up in the sky, the scarlet golden dragon's body tumbled, charging into the surging waves, causing the space to tremble. At this moment, Nie Tian's strength was already peak 9th level Heavenly Emperor, and he could already unleash the terrifying power of the sovereign dragon vein. Right at this moment, the adjudicator's brows furrowed slightly. He actually felt a huge force assailing him, causing his body to involuntarily sway, and he actually took a step back. Impossible! A surging angry roar sounded out. The adjudicator's face fell, and he actually pressed over with a palm once more. Raging waves immediately appeared in the air, roaring and roaring wildly. But when Nie Tian saw the situation, his brows did not furrow. A strange smile even surged at the corners of his mouth. He already knew at this time that so-called deity realm martial artists were not as terrifying as the legends said, and were not undefeatable. Thinking up to here, the pair of wings behind Nie Tian suddenly shook, his figure turning into a streak of black light and flying out, and he actually charged straight for the adjudicator. Nie Tian, what is he trying to do? When everyone saw this scene, their gazes trembled intensely, simply not daring to believe their eyes. Nie Tian charged toward the adjudicator. Could it be that he was going to kill the latter? Killing a deity realm martial artist, this was too crazy. Stinking brat, what do you want to do? When the adjudicator saw Nie Tian charge over recklessly, he actually cried out in shock, unable to conceal the nervousness in his voice. He never dreamed that he, a dignified deity realm martial artist, would actually be forced to this extent by a heavenly emperor martial artist. I want to see if deity realm martial artists are really as immortal as the legends say. Nie Tian's figure was like lightning, his eyes cold and murderous, and he actually arrived at a place only 100 meters away from the adjudicator. In an instant, his eyes flickered, and absolute confinement was activated. An enormous spiritual deterrence whizzed out, shrouding the adjudicator. Feeling the spiritual deterrence, the adjudicator was stunned, and immediately felt that something was wrong. He wanted to react, but it was already too late. In an instant, the adjudicator's divine sense trembled violently, and he fell into a daze. Good chance! The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched, and he shouted joyfully. The sword Absolute Heaven Slash suddenly slashed down, and a mighty sword shadow erupted with a destructive power. He knew that the martial body of a deity realm martial artist must be very tyrannical, so he used the forbidden move, blood devouring the sky, for this slash. He must kill the adjudicator on the spot. The others were completely frightened by Nye Tian's shocking action, and their eyes trembled violently. Nye Tian was really a madman. He even dared to kill a deity realm martial artist. Boom! At this time, the blood-colored sword shadow suddenly fell, and in the midst of a bloody light, the adjudicator's body directly exploded, blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and not even bones were left. The scene that entered the eyes made everyone suck in a breath of cold air, directly stunned on the spot, and looked at the sky in disbelief. The adjudicator, a deity realm martial artist from the upper realms, was actually killed by Nye Tian with one slash. How was this possible? Chapter 1338. The voice of the adjudicator suddenly came from the void, but his figure could not be seen, which was extremely strange. He's not dead. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed. He could not help but tremble, and his face was filled with shock. He killed the adjudicator with a single strike, but the adjudicator turned into a splatter of blood in front of him. He was not dead. How was this possible? Nye Tian had a look of shock on his face. He activated his holographic divine runes and searched through the surrounding space. After a short while, he discovered a crystalline ball of light floating in the air. It was actually only the size of a thumb and was extremely inconspicuous in the dark cloud. What is this? Nye Tian looked at the ball of light and frowned. This was something left behind after the adjudicator's body was destroyed. It was extremely strange. The ball of light swam in the air, and there was actually an extremely powerful soul aura within it. That's the adjudicator's godhead. The Snow Empress suddenly exclaimed at this moment. Her voice was extremely shrill. Godhood, that ball of light was definitely the legendary godhood. The Snow Empress had heard that one had to form a godhead in order to ascend to the godly state. In order to condense a godhead, one had to absorb the energy of the God realm space. Bright spirit force was a form of energy that surpassed the heaven and earth spiritual energy. The reason why the people of the divine realm in the heaven realm could not advance to the God realm was not because they were not talented enough, but because there was no Shin-E power in the heaven realm. This was just like the martial artists of the middle and lower planes. No matter how talented they were, it was almost impossible for them to break through the planar restrictions. Even if the martial artists of the heaven realm and the God realm had heaven-defying talent, without the spirit power, they would not be able to advance to the God realm. However, the Snow Empress also knew that absorbing divine power wasn't the only way to form Godhead. There was another way, and that was to plunder Godhead. Plundering godhoods was much easier than simply relying on absorbing the power of gods to condense godhood. The average cultivator would need several thousand years to condense the godhead by absorbing the bright spirit force. Genius cultivators would need several hundred years, and only a small number of monstrous geniuses could condense the godhead within 100 years. Those who were able to condense a godhead within a few decades were definitely monstrous geniuses. Compared to absorbing the bright spirit energy to condense the godhead, plundering the godhead was much more brutal and simple. For example, the adjudicator's godhood had been destroyed, but his godhood was still there. If he wanted to rebuild his body, it would take several years. During this period of time, If someone could destroy the divine sense inside the Godhead, and then fuse with the Godhead, they would be able to advance to the God realm. However, there is a huge drawback to plundering divine deity, and that is that your future cultivation will become very slow. After all, it is not your divine deity, and it is not the most suitable for your martial body. The Snow Empress' eyes revealed a burning look when she thought about snatching the divine essence. She became extremely greedy. The adjudicator seemed to have sensed that the Snow Emperor was up to no good. He could not help but growl, "Xuelingtian, what are you trying to do?" "My lord, The Snow Empress was stunned. Her forehead was full of sweat, and she was speechless. Even if he knew about the method of seizing godhoods, he would not dare to have any ideas about the adjudicators. The adjudicator had a powerful force backing him, and even if he really did possess the former's godhead, he would not be able to live long in the realmverse. Godhood? At this moment, Nietian's eyes narrowed, and he could not help but laugh. He had also heard of godhoods, but he had never seen one before. So it was like this. The legendary godhood was actually a ball of light the size of a thumb. It was really unbelievable. Needless to say, Nietian's understanding of the godhood was still very shallow. The size of the godhood varied according to the strength of the martial artist. The adjudicator was the lowest level lower celestial, and his godhood was only the size of a thumb. If he advanced to the middle celestial, his godhood would increase to the size of a fist, and if he advanced to the upper celestial, it would be the size of a head. "Little brat, how can you release such a powerful spiritual attack?" At this moment, the adjudicator seemed to have calmed down a lot, and he spoke in a deep voice. The spiritual attack from Nietian was too terrifying. He could clearly feel a wave of divine intent power, a spiritual attribute divine intent power. Nietian was from the divine realm of the heaven realm. How could he have divine intent power? This was too strange. "You don't need to know this." Nietian stared at the ball of light in the air, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a strange smile. "Little brat, what are you trying to do?" The adjudicator sensed that something was wrong, and he shouted in panic. "I really want to know what the legendary godhood is." Nietian smiled, and his silhouette flashed, flying towards the ball of light. The adjudicator's physical body had been destroyed, and he had lost the ability to fight back. Nietian, of course, would not let him leave. "Stop!" At this moment, a low voice resounded in the sky, and the void trembled. A majestic figure descended, and a majestic aura engulfed everything. Nietian frowned, feeling a majestic aura descend. His body couldn't help but tremble, and he was forced to retreat. Nietian's wings flapped, and his silhouette retreated a few thousand meters, avoiding the pressure of the incoming figure. In the next moment, a gray-robed figure descended, and his aura spread out like a towering mountain. Another adjudicator! Nietian's eyes widened, and he looked slightly nervous. He didn't expect another adjudicator to descend. Moreover, judging from the aura, this adjudicator was much stronger than the previous one. "Lord Zhao!" The previous adjudicator shouted in pleasant surprise when he saw his savior. He was extremely excited. If this adjudicator had come a second later, his godhood would have fallen into Nietian's hands. "Li Bo, what's going on?" The adjudicator saw the ball of light in the air, and his expression darkened. "So the first adjudicator's name was Li Bo, Lord Zhao. A few days ago, I received a message from Xuelingtian, saying that one of the 9 sovereigns was killed, so I came to investigate." Li Bo's godhood moved, and it fell into Zhao Zi's palm. He explained everything, and finally, he said, "It's this brat, he killed the 9 sovereigns," and, when he spoke up to there, he paused for a moment. He was clearly a little embarrassed as he said, "Moreover, you destroyed my physical body." After listening to Li Bo's narration, Zhao Zi's expression darkened. His gaze locked onto Nietian, and a complicated expression appeared on his face. If Nye Tian had only killed a few of the 9 sovereigns, or defeated the Snow Empress, it wouldn't have surprised him. However, Nye Tian had actually defeated Li Bo, and even destroyed the latter's physical body. This was extremely terrifying. A heavenly emperor realm cultivator actually defeated a godly realm cultivator, and it was indeed strange. More importantly, Nye Tian was still so young. Lord, this brat's strength is very strange. Not only does he have the heart of nothingness, but he also has the dragon vein. At this time, Li Bo's voice sounded again, and it was filled with hatred. Heart of nothingness and dragon vein? Zhao Zi was stunned, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. He muttered, "How can these two things coexist?" Chapter 1339. Inside the demonic devouring abyss, another adjudicator, Zhao Zi, arrived, instantly reversing the situation. Nye Tian furrowed his brows and a complicated look appeared in his eyes. He could sense that Zhao Zi's strength was far above Li Bo's. The current him was definitely not Zhao Zi's match. Nye Tian's guess was right. Zhao Zi's strength was far above Li Bo's. Li Bo was only an early-stage low-god, while Zhao Zi was an early-stage mid-god. There was an entire realm difference between the two. To put it bluntly, the current Zhao Zi could instantly kill Nye Tian. However, he did not do so. Instead, he looked at Nye Tian with a gloomy expression, as though he was thinking about something. Lord Zhao, this kid killed the 9 emperors. Even if his talent is heaven-defying, we cannot let him live. Li Bo could guess what Zhao Zi was thinking and said anxiously, "Shut up." Zhao Zi gave a low shout and rebuked angrily. A dignified deity realm martial artist actually had his physical body destroyed by a heavenly emperor martial artist, and you still have the face to clamor here? The ball of Godhead light froze for a moment. Clearly, it was scared out of its wits and dared not speak anymore. Zhao Zi looked at Nye Tian as his mind raced. Nye Tian killed the 9 emperors and destroyed Li Bo's body. That was nothing. It was precisely because of this that Nye Tian's terrifying talent was highlighted. If it were under normal circumstances, Zhao Zi would have killed Nye Tian without any hesitation. But now, he had to think about something. The Crimson Lunar Divine Palace has been in decline for the past few years. Every subsidiary plane is in a state of decline and the number of talents is dwindling. If this continues, I'm afraid it will fall out of the 12 shrines. Although this kid in front of me has done some things that are out of line, his talent is too shocking. It's something I've never seen before in my life. If he joins the Divine Palace and participates in the grand competition of the 12 shrines, it might be a pleasant surprise. Zhao Zi pondered. His cold eyes gradually turned gentle. Kid, do you know that you've made a grave mistake? Zhao Zi made up his mind and decided to rope Nye Tian into the Crimson Lunar Divine Palace. Will you kill me? Looking at Zhao Zi, Nye Tian vaguely guessed something and asked directly. He did not explain anything to Zhao Zi because he could tell that the latter did not care about the 9 emperors at all. That will depend on your performance. Zhao Zi laughed. Nye Tian was much smarter than he had imagined. He said directly, "Young man, as long as you follow me back to the God domain, I will guarantee your life. Moreover, I will let you join the Red Moon Divine Palace, one of the 12 divine palaces in the God domain. How about it?" God's shocking realm. Hearing these 4 words, Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. This was the first time he learned that the upper realms of the divine realm in the heaven world were called the God-shocking realms. It seemed that the person in front of him was from one of the 12 divine palaces, the Crimson Moon Divine Palace, and he had taken a fancy to his talent, so he wanted to recruit him. Nye Tian was slightly shocked. It turned out that the world of martial arts was much larger than he had imagined. The God-shocking realm was definitely not the only realm, because the Sword Elder had said that the realm he was in was called the God-sealing region. What benefits can I get by joining the Crimson Moon Divine Palace? After thinking for a while, Nye Tian smiled faintly. Taken aback, Zhao Zi asked, "You want benefits?" She hadn't expected Nie Tian to make such a straightforward request. He was deeply shocked by Nie Tian's calmness. If it was an ordinary martial artist, they would definitely be ecstatic to hear that they could enter the upper realms. Take the Snow Emperor for example. If Zhao Zi allowed him to enter the realms, he would definitely be obedient and would not want any benefits at all. Zhao Zi looked at Nie Tian with a little more admiration in his eyes. He said, "You can become a God Realm martial artist after entering the realms. If you join the Crimson Moon Divine Palace, your future will be limitless. With your talent, it is not impossible for you to stand at the peak of the realms in the future." Nie Tian smiled faintly. He raised his eyebrows and said, "What you said, I can do it even if I don't join the Crimson Moon Divine Palace. As for standing at the peak of the realms, it is too far away. I am more interested in the benefit." Zhao Zi's eyebrows furrowed as he was taken aback. He hadn't expected Nie Tian to have such an attitude. Then he laughed and said, "Tell me, little friend, what do you want?" Nie Tian's calmness exceeded Zhao Zi's expectations. "I have some friends who also want to enter the God-shocking realm and join the Crimson Moon Divine Palace. Is that okay?" Nie Tian said with a faint smile. Zhao Zi was stunned. He did not expect Nie Tian to make such a request. He originally thought that Nie Tian would ask for some divine weapons or divine pills. He did not expect Nie Tian to be thinking of his friends. "Rest assured, Lord Zhao. My friends are all peak-stage heavenly emperors. Their strength is not weaker than the 9 emperors," Nie Tian said. He knew what Zhao Zi was worried about. "All right." Zhao Zi nodded and said, "I agree." He was an outer sect elder of the Crimson Moon Divine Palace. He had the authority to bring a few people to the realms. "Lord Zhao, I have a friend whose cultivation foundation is damaged, and his spiritual meridian is also damaged, so..." Nie Tian smiled. He didn't expect that Zhao Zi would be so generous, so he continued to say. Zhao Zi chuckled and tossed out a few medicinal pills. "These are Tier 3 divine pills. They can heal any injuries of heavenly emperors. Not only that, they can also greatly increase their strength, helping them advance to the godly state." "Thank you, Lord Zhao." Nie Tian did not stand on ceremony. After receiving the divine pill, he sensed it with his divine sense. He was stunned. The aura within the divine pill was too strong. It was something he had never seen before. If he did not see it with his own eyes, it would be hard to believe that there was such a powerful elixir in the world. Nie Tian also knew that the divine pill was above the spiritual pill. "Kid, are you done with your conditions?" Zhao Zi laughed and asked. "Of course not." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, revealing a strange smile. He looked at Xue Di and said, "I still want to kill him." Zhao Zi frowned and his face darkened when he sensed the killing intent in Nie Tian's eyes. He had agreed to all the conditions that Nie Tian had raised. Yet, he still wanted to kill him. It was a little too much. If Nie Tian wanted to kill an ordinary person, it would be fine. However, he wanted to kill the 9 emperors. More importantly, Xue Lingtian's identity was not just the 9 emperors. He was Xue Wushuang's father and Qian Lusha's teacher. Xue Wushuang and Qian Lusha were both talented martial artists of the Red Moon Divine Palace. The Red Moon Divine Palace was counting on them for the next grand competition of the 12 shrines. If Nie Tian killed Xue Lingtian and was recruited into the Red Moon Divine Palace, it would definitely infuriate Xue Wushuang and Qian Lusha. All in all, Zhao Zi couldn't let Nie Tian kill Xue Lingtian. However, Zhao Zi did not know that Nie Tian had already killed Qian Lusha's father, Qian Chenyu. If he entered the Red Moon Divine Palace, Qian Lusha would definitely take revenge on him. Chapter 1340. Yes, I must kill him. Nie Tian looked at Zhao Zi and said with determination. He must kill the Snow Empress and no one could stop him. Zhao Zi looked into Nie Tian's eyes and saw the murderous intent in them, which made him shudder. At this moment, he had to consider whether it was worth it to offend Shui Wushuang and Thousand Flowing Kill for the sake of Nie Tian. He heard that Shui Wushuang and Thousand Flowing Kill had already condensed their godheads and were the most terrifying prodigies the Red Lunar Divine Palace had seen in the past 1,000 years. Shui Wushuang and Thousand Flowing Kill had only entered the god domain for 100 years, but they were able to condense their godheads in such a short time. On the other hand, Nie Tian's talent was even more terrifying, but he hadn't displayed it yet. Before talent became strength, it could only be talent and couldn't replace strength. With these thoughts in mind, the look in Zhao Zi's eyes gradually changed. He looked at Nie Tian and said coldly, "Young man, what if I insist on protecting Shui Lingtian? Then I refuse to join the Red Lunar Divine Palace." Nie Tianling replied indifferently, "You will return to the god domain sooner or later, but you can't bring Shui Lingtian back. You can protect him now, but you can't protect him forever. I will kill Shui Lingtian." The cold voice reverberated in the void, sending chills down everyone's spines. Lu Motu and the others were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe that Nie Tian dared to speak to Zhao Zi in such a tone. Nie Tian's words were a threat to Zhao Zi. "My lord, save me!" The Snow Empress wailed pitifully when she felt Nie Tian's murderous intent. Zhao Zi stared at Nie Tian with a complicated expression. If the latter didn't join the Red Lunar Divine Palace, then he would be an enemy that must be eliminated. Zhao Zi couldn't bear to kill such a talented person with his own hands. For a moment, Zhao Zi was in a dilemma. He didn't know what enmity there was between the Snow Empress and Nie Tian, but judging from Nie Tian's attitude, it was impossible to reconcile. "My lord." At this moment, the Snow Empress suddenly thought of something and exclaimed as she pointed at Nie Tian and shouted, He's the god-fiend origin embryo. Fiend god nascent embryo." Hearing these 4 words, Zhao Zi and Li Bo were stunned for a moment before they cried out in surprise. The two of them were from the upper realms, so they knew better than anyone else what a god-fiend nascent embryo meant. The fiend god nascent embryo was an ancient taboo that shocked the entire god realm. Nie Tian was also stunned. He didn't expect the Snow Empress to reveal this matter at this moment. He had heard from the demonic way that his parents had been imprisoned because of the demon god embryo, and he had become an orphan because of it. From Zhao Zi and Li Bo's attitude, one could tell how terrifying the fiend god origin embryo was to them. "Yes." Suddenly, Li Bo's voice rang out again. "This brat is definitely the legendary fiend god nascent embryo. Otherwise, his strength wouldn't be so strange, and he wouldn't be able to possess the heart of nothingness and the dragon vein at the same time. The fiend god nascent embryo must have fused with the heart of nothingness and the dragon vein. Is that really the case?" After a long time, Zhao Zi also reacted. He looked at Nie Tian with a gloomy expression, but his eyes were filled with disbelief. He didn't sense any aura of the fiend god nascent embryo from Nie Tian's body. As far as he knew, there was only one person in the world who had the fiend god nascent embryo, and that was the son of those 2 people. However, after those 2 people were imprisoned, their son also disappeared mysteriously. If he was really still alive, he should be more than 200 years old, not 20. Zhao Zi could guess Nie Tian's bone age with one look. He was definitely not more than 200 years old. "My lord." At this moment, the Snow Empress guessed what Zhao Zi was thinking. She said, "This person is called Nie Tian, and he was one of the strongest people in the heaven realm. He fell 100 years ago, and now he is reincarnated." Reincarnated? Zhao Zi was stunned, and he finally understood something. He said in astonishment, "The fiend god nascent embryo has the power of reincarnation. Is this kid really the son of those 2 people?" Thinking of this, Zhao Zi was completely stunned, and couldn't say a word for a long time. Nie Tian stood tall in the sky, his face was gloomy, and his eyes were trembling slightly. He didn't know how Zhao Zi would react next. "Lord Zhao, this kid is the fiend god nascent embryo, we must kill him. Kill him, and we will have made a great contribution." Li Bo became excited at this moment, and he screamed loudly. Killing the fiend god nascent embryo is indeed a great contribution. Zhao Zi's reaction was very calm, and he sighed in his heart. He said, "But it is also a great trouble. No matter what, the fiend god nascent embryo is the flesh and blood of the Nye family. Does the Nye family really not care about the fiend god nascent embryo?" The Nye family was a supergiant that was even more terrifying than the 12 shrine palaces. At this moment Zhao Zi hesitated. He even regretted knowing the real identity of Nye Tian. At this moment, he couldn't kill Nye Tian, and he couldn't not kill him either. No matter what, he would get into trouble. "Lord Zhao, what are you hesitating for? The fiend god nascent embryo can't be left alive." Li Bo saw that Zhao Zi didn't move, and he couldn't help but scream anxiously. "Kill." Zhao Zi frowned, and he made up his mind, and released his entire body's aura. Since the disaster had come to him, he couldn't avoid it even if he wanted to. He could only brace himself and fight. Oh no! When Nye Tian saw the killing intent in Zhao Zi's eyes, his heart couldn't help but sink. Then, a sea of crimson golden lightning appeared behind him, and the crimson golden dragon appeared once again. Even if he was facing an expert like Zhao Zi, he still wanted to fight. Boom! Crack! However, Zhao Zi's aura spread out like a flood, and it directly pressed down on Nye Tian, making it hard for him to breathe. The crimson golden dragon didn't even have the slightest ability to resist, and with a loud explosion, it directly collapsed in the void, and the draconic aura spread out in the space. Nye Tian's body trembled, and he violently vomited a mouthful of blood. Zhao Zi was a mid-god, and his strength was much stronger than Li Bo's. Before him, Nye Tian couldn't even withstand his aura. Zhao Zi's eyes flickered intensely, and the killing intent in his eyes finally solidified. He no longer hesitated. "Wait!" Just at this moment, a hurried voice rang out, following which, a silhouette rushed over with a badge in his hand, raising it high up in the air. Zhao Zi's eyes darkened. He saw a flame flying over, and when he focused his eyes, he saw the token fluttering in the air. Fengyun Medallion. The instant he saw the token, Zhao Zi's eyes trembled violently, and his face stiffened. Then, his aura abruptly dissipated. Nye Tian felt the enormous pressure disappear, and he immediately steadied himself, but his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Weimo too. When he saw the figure that appeared beside him, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then, his eyes focused on the token in Weimo Tu's hand, and he was astonished. What kind of token was that? How could Zhao Zi be so afraid of it? Zhao Zi's figure froze in the air, and he looked at Weimo Tu in astonishment. He asked, "Who are you? Why do you have the Fengyun token?" The Fengyun token, the token of the Fengyun Ye clan, was even more terrifying than the Divine Palace Jade tokens of the 12 shrines. Weimo Tu was from the divine realm of the Heaven Realm. How could he have the Fengyun Ye clan's token? "He is my man." At this moment, the void suddenly trembled, and a peerlessly domineering voice sounded. Then, a figure descended, and the entire devouring devil abyss seemed to sink a little. "Lord Emperor Yi." Seeing the figure in the air, Weimo Tu cried out in surprise. Chapter 1341. Demonic Devouring Abyss. A domineering figure descended, and a powerful pressure spread across the entire abyss. At this moment, he was like the ruler of the abyss. Everyone looked at the descending figure and felt the pressure in the space. They were extremely shocked, and even had the urge to prostrate and worship him. However, Nye Tian was stunned. He looked at the domineering figure not far away, and his mouth was wide open. He couldn't say a word. This face, this aura, it was so familiar. In the blink of an eye, Nye Tian felt a rumbling sound in his head as images of the past flashed through his mind, causing his soul to tremble violently and his whole body to tremble uncontrollably. Nye Tian. At this moment, the Frostharch realized that something was wrong with Nye Tian's reaction, and couldn't help but exclaim, "Young master!" At almost the same time, Emperor Yi took a step forward and actually knelt on one knee in front of Nye Tian. He said in a low voice, "I'm late and I've let you suffer. You really are Grandpa Hai." Nye Tian looked at the figure and the face in front of him, and he almost choked on his words. His face was filled with surprise and joy. He had never thought that he would meet the person who had raised him in the past here. "Young master, I am Yi Qinghai," Emperor Yi said in a low voice. His cold face was extremely moved, and his turbid eyes were filled with tears, as if they were about to fall. "Grandpa Hai, quickly get up!" Nye Tian finally reacted. He took a step forward and helped Emperor Yi up. When he was young, his memories before the age of 5 were blank. However, he remembered Yi Qinghai very clearly. Perhaps, some things and some people couldn't be suppressed by any power. Nye Tian remembered that Yi Qinghai had brought him to live in a different place almost every half a month. They had been chased by countless people, but they had all successfully escaped. If not for Yi Qinghai, Nye Tian would have died many times. At this moment, the Snow Tharch, the Frost Tharch, and the others were completely petrified. They looked at the scene in front of them in a daze. This person actually called Nye Tian young master, and even knelt down. How terrifying was Nye Tian's identity? 4 words, unimaginable. Of course, the Snow Empress could tell that Zhao Zi was extremely fearful of the newcomer. "Grandpa Hai, where have you been all these years?" Nye Tian calmed down slightly, yet his expression revealed a trace of seriousness amidst his joy. He knew that Yi Qinghai must have encountered something when he left. Otherwise, he would not have left him behind. "Young master, it's a long story." Emperor Yi let out a long sigh. Then, he laughed and said, "Fortunately, the young master is fine. This old servant did not fail to live up to master's expectations." Nye Tian forced a smile. It had been hard on him all these years. Yi Qinghai must have had it even harder. A moment later, both of them calmed down. At this moment, Nye Tian finally understood that the person behind the demonic road map was none other than Yi Qinghai. "Sir, who are you?" At this moment, Zhao Zi finally recovered from his shock. His face was filled with horror, and even his voice was trembling. "You're called Zhao Zi?" Emperor Yi turned around slightly and looked at Zhao Zi coldly. Yes. Zhao Zi's lips were trembling. His face was as pale as a sheet, and his forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Being stared at by Emperor Yi made him feel as if he had fallen into an icehouse. It was like a little sheep being stared at by a lion. Zhao Zi concluded that Emperor Ye's strength was at least that of a superior god. He might even be a lord. A lord was the king of the gods. There were only 12 lord gods in the entire god-alarming domain staircase. They were the palace lords of the 12 divine palaces. No matter what, the newcomer's strength was far above his. If he reacted wrongly, he would be doomed eternally. Everyone looked at Emperor Yi. They did not know what he would do next. Humph! Suddenly, Emperor Yi laughed coldly. Then, he stretched out his hand. Suddenly, the entire space shook. It was as if a gap had been torn between heaven and earth. A huge hand appeared in the air and grabbed towards Zhao Zi. Chi. Following that, an extremely horrifying sound rang out. The gigantic hand actually tore off one of Zhao Zi's arms. Zhao Zi was unable to resist at all. His body trembled slightly, and half of his body was dripping with blood. However, his reaction was still fast. A gust of divine power gushed out and directly sealed the wound, stopping the blood from flowing. When everyone saw Emperor Ye's attack, they were all stunned. One after another, they gasped and looked at Emperor Yi in horror. To directly cut off someone's arm, such an attack was too ruthless. It was truly domineering and fierce. However, Zhao Zi stood where he was and did not have much of a reaction. Instead, he was secretly delighted. Zhao Zi, you tried to kill my young master. It's not too much for me to take something from you, right? Emperor Yi said coldly. There was a sly smile in his eyes. Thank you for not killing me, Your Excellency. Zhao Zi bowed slightly and was very respectful. A severed arm, to a god, wasn't even worth a strand of hair. It was not an exaggeration to say that Zhao Zi's arm could recover in a few days. Moreover, he did not need any elixirs. Emperor Yi only wanted one of his arms. It was indeed very generous. You're quite smart. Emperor Yi laughed. Then, he clenched his fist and the arm turned into a ball of bloody light. A ring appeared in his hand. Young Master, Zhao Zi is an outer sanctum elder of the Red Lunar Divine Palace. There should be a lot of good things in his spatial ring. They should be very useful to you now. Emperor Yi handed the ring to Nie Tian and said with a smile. Nie Tian was speechless. Emperor Yi actually cut off Zhao Zi's arm for the latter's spatial ring. Yi Qinghai was a smart man. Of course, cutting off Zhao Zi's arm was not as simple as the spatial ring. He wanted to shock and awe everyone. After all, Zhao Zi was a member of the Red Lunar Divine Palace and an outer sanctum elder. He could not kill him recklessly. Cutting off one of his arms was nothing to him. However, in the eyes of others, this was an extremely cruel punishment. Yi Qinghai wanted to use this method to tell everyone that Nie Tian could not be touched. Nie Tian took the spatial ring and couldn't help but smile. This was the spatial ring of a middle god. There must be a lot of good things in it. At this moment, the Snow Empress and the Great Emperor of Ziwei were stunned when they saw Emperor Ye's attack. Cold sweat flowed down their backs, and even their tailbones felt cold. If they knew that there was such a person behind Nie Tian, they would not dare to go against Nie Tian even if they had 10,000 gallbladders. At this moment, Emperor Yi suddenly turned around and looked at the Snow Empress with extreme killing intent. The Snow Empress' body trembled inexplicably. Her forehead was dripping with cold sweat. It was as if she could not even withstand Emperor Ye's gaze. Shui Lingtian, no matter what, you are one of the 9 Emperor's supreme martial artists, yet you like to use underhanded methods, Emperor Yi said coldly. Back then, when you plotted to murder the young master, I was not in the heaven realm. Now, it is absolutely impossible for you to frame the young master. I will give you a chance. You and the young master have a fair fight. If you win, you can continue to live. If you lose, you can only die. Chapter 1342. Emperor Yi gave Shui Lingtian a chance to have a fair fight with Nie Tian, but Shui Lingtian was scared out of his wits. He saw with his own eyes that Nie Tian could even defeat a godly state warrior. How could he, a demigod, be a match for Nie Tian? My lord. The Snow Emperor subconsciously looked at Zhao Zi, hoping that the latter would say something for him. However, Zhao Zi deliberately avoided the Snow Emperor's gaze and pretended not to see it. At this moment, he could not even protect himself. How could he have the leisure to save the Snow Emperor? Shui Lingtian, make your move. Nie Tian smiled faintly and took a step forward. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Nie Tian, I. The Snow Emperor looked at Nie Tian. He did not even have the courage to resist. He became extremely timid and did not look like a celestial emperor at all. Shui Lingtian, you are the ruler of a world. Don't you even have the courage to fight with me? Nie Tianling smiled coldly. The killing intent in his eyes intensified. The great emperor of Ziwei and the Frost Emperor also frowned. They did not expect the Snow Emperor, who was usually high and mighty, to be so timid in the face of life and death. Nie Tian shook his head slightly and did not wait any longer. He took a step forward and the sword will around him gushed out. It was accompanied by terrible black flames of nothingness and surging blood qi. He directly struck with his sword. Boom! The void shook slightly. In the air, a blood-red sword shadow surged with nothingness and black flames of nothingness pressed down. No! At this moment, the Snow Emperor finally reacted and screamed. The fear in his heart was magnified infinitely through his suddenly dilated eyes. He wanted to resist, but it was too late. The moment before his death, the Snow Emperor's eyes surged with great fear and regret. When the sword shadow fell, the Snow Emperor's figure completely disappeared. Not even his bones were left. The body of the 9 emperors and the dream of being in the godly state for hundreds of years had vanished. It was really regrettable. The Frost Emperor, the great Emperor of Ziwei, and the others looked at the scene in front of them with complicated expressions. No matter what, the Snow Emperor had worked with them before. They hadn't expected the Snow Empress to die in such a manner. Nye Tian, do it. At this time, great Emperor Ziwei stepped forward and said calmly. He was the Snow Empress helper. Once the Snow Empress died, Nye Tian wouldn't allow him to live. However, he was a courageous person, unlike the Snow Empress, who was afraid of death. Great Emperor Ziwei, do it yourself, Nye Tian said nonchalantly as he glanced at Great Emperor Ziwei. If one did something wrong, one had to accept the price. Even if Great Emperor Ziwei knew he was wrong, he still had to pay the price. Thank you. Great Emperor Ziwei forced a smile and said, I know I have done something wrong. Leaving behind the purple demon eyes can be considered compensation. As his indifferent and helpless voice fell, Great Emperor Ziwei's body shook, and he actually exploded. Amidst the bloody light, a pair of purple demon eyes remained. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He extended his hand and stored the purple demon eyes into his space ring. The purple demon eyes was a good item, one of the 10 great innate special eyes. Zhao Zi looked at everything in front of him with a complicated and embarrassed expression. The 9 emperors were all chosen by him, but now they were being killed by others. How could he feel comfortable? However, no matter how uncomfortable he was, he could only watch without daring to make a sound. Nye Tian spread out his divine sense and sensed for a while. He didn't sense Donghuang's aura. It seemed that he was already dead. Previously, Donghuang received a direct blow from Nye Tian and was severely injured. Then, Renhuang Yi arrived and directly suppressed to death by Renhuang Ye's coercion. After dealing with the Snow Empress and the others, Nye Tian's figure moved and returned to Yi Qinghai's side. He also didn't know how Yi Qinghai would deal with Zhao Zi and the others. After all, Zhao Zi and Li Bo were from the Red Lunar Divine Palace. Even Yi Qinghai didn't dare to kill them casually. However, the troublesome thing was that Zhao Zi and the others already knew that Nye Tian had the Godfiend origin embryo. If he let them leave, it would be very inappropriate. My lord, I will definitely not leak the matter of the Godfiend origin embryo, Zhao Zi said fearfully as he took a step forward. He was a smart person. Of course, he knew that if a small character knew a big secret, it would usually not end well. If he had a choice, he would rather not know the identity of Nye Tian. Zhao Zi, don't be nervous. Yi Qinghai smiled strangely and suddenly threw out a jade token. He said, You are an outer sect elder of the Red Lunar Divine Palace. Do you recognize this jade token? Scarlet Moon Jade Token. Zhao Zi took the jade token and was stunned on the spot. He didn't expect that Renhuang Yi could actually take out the Scarlet Moon Jade Token of the Red Lunar Divine Palace. Zhao Zi, I want you to do something. After returning to the Red Lunar Divine Palace, take this jade token and look for your palace lord. Tell him that it's time for him to repay what he owes Yi Qinghai. Yi Qinghai said and seemed to remember something. His expression became a little complicated. Zhao Zi was stunned and immediately understood that the person in front of him should be an old friend of the Red Lunar Palace Lord. From his tone, it seemed that the Red Lunar Palace Lord owed him something. It was obvious that Yi Qinghai wanted the Red Lunar Palace Lord to protect the secret of the Godfiend origin embryo for him. I understand. Zhao Zi put away the scarlet moon jade token and bowed respectfully. At this time, he already knew that the person in front of him must be an expert of the same level as the Red Lunar Palace Lord. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to speak like this. Zhao Zi, you are a smart person, but I still have to remind you. Yi Qinghai looked at Zhao Zi and sneered. He said, if even half a word of what happened here gets out, I will definitely flatten the Red Lunar Divine Palace. Flatten the Red Lunar Divine Palace. Hearing Yi Qinghai's words, Zhao Zi's whole body trembled inexplicably and he was covered in cold sweat. These words were too arrogant, so arrogant that it made people's hair stand on end. If it was someone else who said this, Zhao Zi would definitely treat them as a madman, but the person in front of him was different. Could it be that he is someone even more terrifying than a lord? Zhao Zi was shocked and secretly surprised. Don't worry, my lord. I know what to do. Zhao Zi bowed slightly and didn't dare to raise his head to look at Ren Huangyi. Very good. Yi Qinghai nodded slightly and waved his hand. You can leave now. Thank you, my lord. Zhao Zi heaved a sigh of relief and his expression became much more relaxed. He agreed and prepared to leave. Wait. At this time, Nie Tian took a step forward and suddenly said, Lord Zhao, I would like to ask if our previous agreement still stands. Zhao Zi was stunned for a moment before he understood. Nie Tian was talking about him joining the Red Lunar Divine Palace. Zhao Zi looked at Yi Qinghai with a troubled expression. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said to Yi Qinghai, Grandpa Hai, I want to join the Red Lunar Divine Palace. Yi Qinghai couldn't help but be stunned. He said, Young master, the Red Lunar Divine Palace is just a small force in the vast territory. With your identity, there is no need for you to join them. Grandpa Hai, I want to rely on my own strength. Nie Tian looked at Yi Qinghai and seemed extremely stubborn. Chapter 1343. Yi Qinghai looked at the determined Nie Tian and frowned. Young master's temper is the same as master's. He doesn't like to rely on others. After thinking for a while, Yi Qinghai nodded. Young master can join the Red Moon Divine Palace, but you can't be apprentice to a master. Yes. Nie Tian nodded heavily when Yi Qinghai finally relented. He joined the Red Moon Divine Palace for better cultivation. He had no intention of being apprenticed to a master. Zhao Zi, go back and tell the palace lord. Yi Qinghai looked at Zhao Zi and smiled. If the palace lord knew that Nie Tian was willing to join the Red Moon Divine Palace, he would probably be so excited that he wouldn't be able to sleep. Emperor Yi had heard that the Red Moon Divine Palace was in danger. If they were to be last in the next God-shocking realm competition, they would probably be removed from the 12 divine palaces. Without their position in the 12 divine palaces, the Red Moon Divine Palace would become an insignificant force and would soon be swallowed by other forces. If the palace lord knew that Nie Tian had joined the Red Moon Divine Palace, he wouldn't have leaked the matter of the demon god embryo even without Emperor Ye's threat. Thank you, Lord. Zhao Zi bowed deeply and said to Nie Tian, Lord, there are a few spacetime scrolls in my spatial ring. They are enough for you to break through the spacetime of the heaven realm and enter the territory. Okay. Nie Tian smiled. There were indeed many good things in Zhao Zi's spatial ring. Lord, I will take my leave. Zhao Zi bowed to Yi Qinghai and left immediately. Zhao Zi took Li Bo and flew into the sky. He didn't fear the spacetime whirlpool above the devouring demon abyss and quickly left the abyss. Lord Zhao, don't you find the name Yi Qinghai familiar? After exiting the demonic devouring abyss, Li Bo's voice rang out with extreme shock. Yi Qinghai is indeed familiar. Zhao Zi calmed down and murmured. Then, he seemed to think of something and exclaimed, Could he be the Emperor of Dark Hell who escaped from the Dark Sea Abyss prison tens of thousands of years ago? The name Emperor of Black Hell was a taboo in all the domains, and no one was allowed to mention it. The Dark Sea Black Prison was a place where the most brutal people of the major realms were imprisoned. Tens of thousands of years ago, a peerless expert appeared in the Dark Sea of Darkness Prison. He was known as the Emperor of Darkness Prison. This person was the only one who escaped from the Dark Sea of Darkness Prison in the past hundreds of thousands of years. Oh my God! When Zhao Zi thought of this, she only reacted after a long time. She let out a strange cry and said in a daze, "If this person really is the Emperor of Black Prison, then wouldn't he be even more terrifying than an overgod?" It was only at this moment that Zhao Zi realized that Renhuang Ye's words about flattening the Crimson Moon Divine Palace were not words of arrogance. The Emperor of Black Hell could even flatten the 12 shrines. "Let's hurry back to the Divine Palace and report everything to the Palace Lord." Zhao Zi did not dare to linger any longer. His figure shot up into the 9 heavens, breaking through the void and disappearing into it. 4 God Realm warriors, the space barrier of the Heaven Realm and God Realm was nothing to them. They could directly break through the space barrier and step into the void. At the same time, in the demonic devouring abyss, Renhuang Yi chuckled and said in his heart, "These 2 fellows seem to have guessed my identity. But this is good too. I guarantee that they won't tell anyone about what happened here." The conversation between Zhao Zi and Li Bo was actually heard by Yi Qinghai. "Demonic Lumen, your mission has been completed." At this moment, Yi Qinghai suddenly turned around and looked at the demonic lumen with killing intent. Killing intent. Nie Tian's expression flickered as he sensed killing intent from Yi Qinghai. "Lord Emperor Yi, you want to..." The lumen demon too was stunned. He suddenly realized something, and his whole body froze in fear. "That's right, I want to kill you." Yi Qinghai's face was cold, without a trace of emotion. At the same time, he looked at Coldness Emperor and said coldly, "You have to die too." "Grandpa Hai, what are you doing?" Nie Tian was stunned. He went forward to stop Yi Qinghai with a look of surprise on his face. "Young master, the divine demon origin embryo is a shocking secret. The 2 of them know about it, so they can't be left alive." Yi Qinghai's face was cold. "This old servant must ensure young master's safety, so these 2 must die." The demonic lumen and Coldness Emperor were stunned at the same time. They couldn't speak for a long time. They didn't expect Yi Qinghai to be so ruthless. Anyone who knew about Nie Tian's secret would be killed. It seemed that in Yi Qinghai's eyes, he would do anything to protect Nie Tian's safety. "Grandpa Hai, I won't allow you to kill them." Nie Tian knew that Yi Qinghai was doing this for his sake, but he still couldn't allow the latter to do so. The demonic lumen had helped Nie Tian before, and Coldness Emperor was Qing Ju's wife. How could Nie Tian watch the 2 of them die? "Young master, you're someone who's going to become a supreme being. Even though these people are your friends, they're also a potential threat to you. I hope young master won't be soft-hearted," Yi Qinghai said in a deep voice. The killing intent in his body didn't disappear. "Grandpa Hai, I said that you can't kill them." Nie Tian was a little angry at this time. He said in a heavy tone, "If I have to kill people around me to become a supreme being, then I don't care if I don't become one." Although he didn't know what Yi Qinghai meant by supreme being, Nie Tian would never do something ungrateful. "Young master." Yi Qinghai furrowed his brows and let out a long sigh. The killing intent in his body finally weakened and disappeared. "Grandpa Hai, I know you are doing this for my own good. However, there is a limit to what you can and can't do. Treachery and repaying kindness with enmity is something you can't do. I hope you won't blame me." Nie Tian's expression softened as he said lightly, "Young master, this old servant won't blame you. No matter what happens in the future, this old servant will support young master." Yi Qinghai nodded slightly and said in a heavy tone, "Grandpa Hai, don't call yourself this old servant in the future. You are my benefactor. Just call me Nie Tian." Nie Tian smiled and said, "Absolutely not." Yi Qinghai heard Nie Tian's words and became nervous. He hurriedly said, "Young master and this old servant are master and servant. This old servant doesn't dare to call young master by his name." Nie Tian's face darkened. It seemed that Yi Qinghai was also a very stubborn person. Nie Tian was very curious about what kind of person his father was. How could Yi Qinghai be so loyal to him? Without further ado, the group left the demon abyss. Nie Tian planned to return to the divine cold palace first, and Yi Qinghai followed him. On the way, Nie Tian couldn't help but ask, "Grandpa Hai, what is your relationship with the palace master of the Red Moon Divine Palace? Does he owe you a big favor?" He was very curious about what the palace master of the Red Moon Divine Palace owed Yi Qinghai to be willing to keep such a shocking secret like the godfiend origin embryo for him. "He doesn't owe me a favor. He owes me his life." Yi Qinghai smiled faintly and said, "Qi Yefeng is my little brother. I saved his life in the past." Little brother? Nie Tian was stunned. One of the palace masters of the 12 divine palaces was actually Yi Qinghai's little brother. Just how terrifying was the latter's identity? Chapter 1344. Divine Cold City, Divine Cold Hall. Nie Tian and the others were sitting in the hall. They were happy that Nie Tian had returned safely. "Big brother, you have returned safely. I guess Shwedi has been killed by you, right?" Long Outyin chuckled and said loudly. Nie Tian nodded and said, "Shwe Lingtian is dead." Then, Nie Tian briefly explained what happened in the demonic devouring abyss. Everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghai. Only now did they realize that this old man who had restrained his aura was actually a legendary godly state expert. However, they did not know that Yi Qinghai was not an ordinary godly state expert. His strength was definitely at the top of all the realms. With a faint smile, Yi Qinghai ran his gaze across the crowd and asked, "Lord Nie Tian, are these your friends?" In order not to arouse suspicion, Yi Qinghai did not address Nie Tian as young lord, nor did he address himself as old slave. "Yeah." Nie Tian nodded vigorously and introduced everyone to him. Mo Qianjun, Jiu Qianxing, Gui Hen, Tiangong, Long Outyin, Qingju, and the others nodded respectfully. This was the first time they had seen a legendary godly state expert. One could imagine the shock in their hearts. With a single glance, Yi Qinghai was able to determine everyone's strength. He couldn't help but smile and say, "Lord Nie Tian's friends are all peak experts of the heaven realm. Not bad." As he spoke, the corners of Yi Qinghai's mouth rose into a smile. In the end, his gaze locked onto Long Outyin and he loudly said, "Especially this guy. He actually has the legendary 9-seal true dragon physique. A super heaven rank heaven-earth spiritual physique. This kind of talent is monstrous even in the realms." "Thank you for your compliment, Lord." Long Outyin chuckled and felt proud of himself. Of course, he was happy to be praised by a godly state expert. However, until now, Long Outyin had not figured out what a 9-seal true dragon was. Moreover, his true dragon body seemed to have undergone some changes. It had fused with the rainbow illusory seal that the Illusion Emperor had left in his body. It was very strange. Seeing that Yi Qinghai seemed to respect Long Outyin, Nie Tian couldn't help but say, "Old Hai, Outyin is my sworn younger brother. He has just awakened the 9 seals' real dragon body, and he needs a teacher to teach him." Old Hai, at this time, Nie Tian had also changed the way he addressed Yi Qinghai, calling him Elder Hai. Yi Qinghai was stunned for a moment before he understood Nie Tian's meaning. He couldn't help but look at Long Outyin and said, "This brat's talent and strength aren't bad. He barely qualifies to be my disciple." "Disciple?" Long Outyin was stunned for a moment before letting out a strange cry. No matter how stupid he was, he still came to his senses. He took a step forward and said in a loud voice, "Master, please accept disciple Long Outyin's bow." "Get up." Yi Qinghai faintly smiled and slightly raised his hand. From the void, a mighty force lifted Long Outyen up. He said, "You are young, Lord Nyetion's sworn younger brother. But even so, if you do anything wrong in the future, this emperor will still kill you." Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Yi Qinghai to be so overbearing. Even to his own disciple, he would casually use the word kill. Nyetion slightly curled his lips. He knew that if Yi Qinghai turned hostile, he wouldn't give him any face. If it wasn't for him, Lu Motu and Frost Tharch would have died in the devil-devouring abyss. However, Long Outyen was Nyetion's sworn younger brother after all. Yi Qinghai definitely couldn't kill him casually. What he said just now was just to scare him. "Master, don't worry. I, Long Outyen, have always been righteous. I won't let you down." Long Outyen wasn't afraid at all. He loudly said with a stern face. To be able to acknowledge a deity realm powerhouse as master, Long Outyen was naturally happy. But he did not know that this master of his was very remarkable. He was once a taboo figure of a realm, a super powerhouse who did not even pay attention to the deity realm's palace lord. For Long Outyen to be able to acknowledge Yi Qinghai as his master, Nyetion was sincerely happy for him. Maybe the next time he saw Long Outyen again, the latter would already be a peerless powerhouse. Following that, Nyetion didn't waste any more time. He took out several divine pills and distributed them to everyone present. Yi Qinghai nodded and said, "Most of you are peak heavenly emperor powerhouses. After consuming these divine pills, not only will your strength advance a step further, but you also have hopes of assailing the deity realm. But this has to wait until you enter the realm before you can do it. Deity realm, one must condense the divine spark, and condensing the divine spark required the power of a god. The heaven realm's divine realm practically had no god power. Wanting to advance to the deity realm in the heaven realm was undoubtedly a fool's talk. Nyetion already made a decision in his heart. After he settled the heaven realm's divine realm's matters, he would enter the realm together with Mo Qianjun and the rest. After everyone consumed the divine pills, there were no abnormalities. They returned to their respective residences and started cultivating bitterly. Above the divine cold great hall, only Nyetion, Yi Qinghai, Qingju, and the rest were left. Nyetion took out the 3 live stone and let Qi Wuxi Ocean and the rest come out. Eldest senior brother. Second senior brother. When Qingju saw Han Fei and Zhang Jianqing 2 people, he cried out in shock, a sorrowful look on his face. Qi Wuxi Ocean, Han Fei, and Zhang Jianqing 3 people were all severely injured, their auras weak. Yi Qinghai was incredibly shocked. He did not think that Nyetion actually had such a good thing like the 3 lives stone on him. But when Yi Qinghai saw Qi Wuxi Ocean, his expression fell, killing intent actually surging all over his body. Old Hai. Sensing Yi Qinghai's reaction, Nyetion could not help but cry out in shock, stopping the latter. "Young master, this person is the one who betrayed master and his wife." Yi Qinghai's cold eyes stared at Qi Wuxi Ocean, looking like he wanted to kill him. Nyetion was stunned for a moment, but he still did not give in. He said solemnly, "Old Hai, please tell me what happened in the past." Yi Qinghai's eyes suddenly became complicated, but he still stared at Qi Wuxi Ocean. He had already guessed that Nyetion knew about his relationship with Qi Wuxi Ocean. After hesitating for a long time, Yi Qinghai sighed and briefly recounted what happened in the past. When Nyetion was born, his identity was not exposed, and no one knew that he was a godfiend nascent embryo, except for a few people closest to him. But Qi Wuxi Ocean objected to Nyetion's parents being together, and actually told the upper realms that Nyetion was a godfiend nascent embryo. After that, Nyetion's parents were captured by people from the upper realms and imprisoned. So that's how it is. Hearing this, Nyetion's expression immediately became gloomy. At this time, he understood what Qi Wuxi Ocean's words meant before he died. "Nye Tian, you must find your mother, and tell her on my behalf that I'm sorry for what happened in the past." This was what Qi Wuxioshan had said at that time, and Nye Tian had always remembered it. It seemed that these years, Qi Wuxioshan must have been very remorseful, otherwise he would not have said such words at the moment of his death. What happened in the past was indeed Qi Wuxioshan's fault, but he already knew that he was wrong. Moreover, in order to save Nye Tian, he had risked his life several times. This kind of kindness was enough to make up for the mistakes of the past.